Peter Lewis, the greatest cartoonist that's ever lived, in my opinion. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for that lofty praise. I feel better already.
I've been a big fan of your work, from all your years at the Newcastle Herald. This is the first time I've actually met you in person.
Yeah, good to meet you too.
It was funny last night. You said to me, "What do you want me to bring?" And you said, "You want me to, bring my notepad and so I can draw you." And I said, "Yeah." I said, "Can you make sure that you bring your trademark braces?"
Yep.
And then you turned around and said, They're
part of a medical condition. No.
And I felt like an absolute prick.
Yeah, I didn't frame that very well, did I? No. So I could have sort of played a bit of a violin and say, "Oh, I'm actually really sick."
Oh, oh my God, I've offended him before I've even met him.
No, I had reflux, and a long time ago, it was quite chronic at the time, and I thought, what can I do about it? Because basically your stomach's getting squeezed by your belt, and so the acid. So it's pretty logical. So I thought, well, how can I not wear a belt? So I got braces. I didn't realise it was going to become a fashion statement. I was walking down through the mall on one occasion. This young bloke walked straight up to me and went, like that. "Cool, man." Hey, like, and I thought, oh my God, the wheels come full turn. I'm actually in fashion for a change. So,
well, you look great. You look great.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Just a question first up. How many times has someone said, "Can you draw me?"
Oh, a lot. But the interesting thing is because I've been drawing casually, professionally, non-professionally, just over the years, I seem to have drawn a lot of people in Newcastle. Mm. And only the other day, my oldest daughter, who's been with this nice bloke now for about 2 years, and she rang me up and she said, "You drew his parents at their wedding." And I only just found out. And they hadn't put two and two together. And this is down in Sydney.
Yeah.
And not only that, but you drew my boyfriend's auntie as well at a previous wedding. And you the same thing happened with my second daughter, and it's like you've drawn all these people, and then you you've connected with a lot of people over the years, but because there's so many faces going past, and people walk up to me knowing who I am, especially when I was working at the Herald full time, and I'm not now. But this was they walk up and say, "Hey, going blah blah blah," as if I should remember them, and my head's full of all these faces. And you see them out of context, you go, I don't know, lovely day.
Well, that's what happens when you're famous, Peter.
Medium-sized fish, small pond. Let's not get carried away here.
Talking about painting, you're actually going to draw me today, aren't you?
Yeah, I'll give it a shot. You're a bit far away, but I think I can catch you.
This is going to be a hard sell, isn't it?
Well, the problem with drawing you see, is you're not bad looking. You've got quite a nice face. It's all balanced. There's no big noses, funny
David,
ears.
can we get this one on the teaser, please?
See, now if you had like Tony Abbott's ears covering the headphones, that would be a real problem. But the thing is, you see, you remind me a bit of Mike Baird. You don't look like Mike Baird, but Mike Baird was a real problem to draw when he was in power, and the New South Wales Premier, because he had quite a nice face. It was all evenly balanced. There was nothing about his face that was sort of unusual, and so I basically had to draw him nearly completely every time I drew him, otherwise you wouldn't know who the hell he was. And the funny thing was, years went by after he left, and my wife and I were in New York, of all places, and we're walking down the street, and there's Mike Baird in a suit with 2 or 3 other gents in suits coming the other way. And he's aged. And I thought, I could draw him now. He's gone. But fortunately for me, after Mike came Gladys Berejiklian.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. If you can't draw Gladys, you might as well give the game away. I even did him as Gru on the front page of the Herald years ago when after a state budget, and we were talking about how despicable the budget was for Newcastle. So I came up with this idea, and I talked the editor into it. So there's one of Gladys's Gru, and I didn't really have to change her all that much, really. Just stick a bit of hair on, and there she was.
I suppose there's some subjects that are a lot easier to draw than others, isn't there? Does that sometimes take a little bit longer or a little bit more thought into some?
Well, you can't estimate the amount of time needed to come up with an idea, because sometimes you'll get an idea that just goes, boom, straight into your head. Mm. And then other times it's like you've got to work for it. And I was very unprepared for that when I started the paper, because that was back in 1986. I started on Valentine's Day, so it's easy to remember. And my daughter was also born that year. So it's like a date that gets locked in. So I'd been working in doing exhibitions and, portrait, blah, blah, blah. But I needed a regular job because I found that to pay the bills, I was actually driving taxis, 13-hour shifts back to back, that sort of thing. So I had a pregnant wife in 1986, and so I went to the paper, and they wanted all or nothing. They'd spoken to me before, and they didn't want me just doing it casually. They said either all or nothing. And so I went in there, and the editor took me on freelance because he'd burned through about 6 cartoonists between me and that famous cartoonist, Les Lumsden. Les had been there for 30 years. And so he was a real established thing. But anyway, see, that editor sort of burned him out, really, because he was a pretty tough sort of guy. And then he burned through another 6 or 7 cartoonists. And then I came along. Now, I had one advantage. I knew what I was dealing with. Everybody told me he's pretty hard to get on with. And I got on pretty well with him as a result. I had no high expectation. And I realised that he was actually quite brilliant. That, in fact, he was probably too big for the Newcastle Herald, and that was one of the reasons why he was a bit of a poor fit for the 10 years he was there, because he was a very intelligent man. I greatly respected him, and when he gave me advice, I listened. The irony is, even though he was a cranky little cuss, someone said to me, he said, "You've got to be good humoured." I thought, coming from you, that's pretty ironic. But anyway, he was right, because he said, if you're not good humoured, he said, they'll eat you. They'll go you, because then you're just being malicious. In this side of work, you've got to be, a joke is the sugarcoating on a pill, and it's amazing what people will accept of a differing opinion or whatever if it's coated in humour, if it's presented in a way that's funny, that's that brings some warmth to it. Yeah. So that's the balance I've always been looking for. But I had a huge disadvantage. Had a good skill set in art, but nothing in journalism. Never done it. And the next thing I realised is that journalists are actually very clever people, and it's a bit intimidating. Not intimidating as in like you're a bunch of academics or neuroscientists or anything, but people who are very quick-witted, very focused. And so it was. I felt in the conference each afternoon like I felt like a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs. And so,
but I suppose that's the thing, is that not only you're drawing, but you've also got to start thinking about a political angle or some type of angle for it, which is not an easy thing to do. And I suppose how many friends, I suppose, would say to you, because they probably think, "Oh, this is easy, best job in the world."
That's what I'm saying to the public.
You'd be finished in an hour. You'd be home. What else do you do?
That's right. I was on a Sydney, what's the name of that, Insiders once, and so I just did something like this. I just did an actual cartoon, like a political cartoon on the spot. I did it in a couple of minutes, and then the guy who ran Insiders, after my spot was finished, said, "Oh, I wonder what he does with the rest of his day." So it's sort of like, because it appears it's very easy to consume a cartoon.
Yeah.
Like Jeff Corbett was our columnist, and he did 300-word columns each day, and everybody be like, it takes a while to consume that. But the irony is that when I was actually asked to stand in for Jeff or whatever on occasions and write the column, I remember on one occasion I did his column, did the cartoon, did blah blah blah, and it's like I thought, I don't know that Jeff's really getting it that tough, actually, because it's a lot harder to think up a cartoon idea, and then but executing it might take an hour, 2 hours, physically, but the actual idea is like, how long is a piece of string?
I suppose with a columnist too, if you've got a little bit of a mind block and you're writing something and you're still not happy, but you can still get away with it with a bit of fluff around the sides, like a bit of meat on the bone. Yeah. Where with yours, it's like front and centre. It's in the window. Yep. Straight to the point. And there's no fluff or smoke and mirrors around it. It's got to be on the ball every time.
Well, that's right. There's a lot of pressure. And in a way, I think I have a sprinter's personality. So it probably suited me to some extent. Put tremendous pressure on yourself for a couple of hours, and then go home and try and forget all about it. And but I actually have marathon ambitions. I always like to do big long scale stuff, which will lead on to the project we were talking about. But I do have a sprinter's personality, so it did suit. And so you got to come out of the blocks fast. And sometimes you didn't even get a topic until like 2 or 3 hours before deadline. Yeah, and that was a real. Or the other thing is the no, what is called a no phenomenon, which is hearing the word no constantly, and that is a big problem for me. Well, it was a big problem for some.
Yeah.
But some cartoonists like Alan Moore only ever heard the word "no" with his political cartoons once over his 30-something year career, and I thought, what world is he in?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I heard "no" like sometimes 2 or 3 times a day, not because the ideas didn't work. Though if they didn't work, I'm fine with that. But simply because they pushed the edge a bit too far for what the editors deemed Newcastle was willing to tolerate.
Just when you were at the Herald, I mean, throughout the day, the course of a day, would you have, on average, 2 or 3 ideas in your head, or did you just go holus bolus just for one, and which would cause problems if you got that no close to deadline?
Yep.
Was that a...
Well, you're delivering a sketch to the editor or whoever's on the day is managing that. I had one editor who was like, I'm so big and tough, and he was like a rooster strutting around, crowing with 4-letter words, and basically. So, but I discovered that he's actually really chicken rather than rooster. And you take a cartoon to him, he'd like have a big panic attack about whether it works or not, and so he was always handing off to subordinates. But generally speaking, I'd take a sketch to the editor, and the editor would say yes, no, blah blah blah, or I might say yes, but maybe if you softened that off, or blah blah blah. But every editor was so different to every other. I had 12 all in the end. And for the record, the one they have now is excellent. She's what I thought was one of the most impressive ones I came across. But unfortunately, I didn't have her as one of my editors because I was gone by then. But my last editor I found was very respectful, and I had a good time with him for about 6 years, 5-6 years, for the last of my tenure. Some maybe not so much. I remember how one editor I was getting on very well with, and he had congenital deafness. And I realised why he liked me, because with my voice, you could hear me through wet cement. So he probably didn't need to turn his hearing aid on with my voice. So that's probably why we got on so well. But he had to leave because of deafness. So that's just an example of all the myriad of reasons. My first editor retired, simply just too old.
Yeah.
But they were all very interesting people.
We got a nice picture of you at the Herald, I think, in your...
Oh, yes, there I am.
So that was your workshop?
Yep, that's 2011. Yeah. So you see up on the top right corner there is my panel beater. And because I had teenage girls at the time, and the car was like a punching bag. So L-platers, and so I got to know them personally. We knew each other first name terms. There's Stan up there. And so I did a cartoon. I turned up late for a repair one day, and I said, "Oh, sorry, I'm late, Stan." He said, "Oh, if you do a cartoon, I'll all be forgiven." So I did a cartoon of him. I gave it to him, and he loved it. It's still in his shop.
So that room there. So when you were working,
Yep.
how many times would people, other journalists or staff, walk in and go, "What are you doing today, Peter?" and stop you, or was it a case of locking the door?
There was no door on it, but it was. Well, it was. The best part was when I actually got my own computer, so I didn't have to go out, because it's actually the communication industry is more like a library where everybody's like task focused, and you don't hear anything. They don't want to be spoken to, or they don't want to be interrupted.
Yeah.
They got this work, they got heaps of work to do, and they just want to get on with it. And here's me blundering around trying to find a computer I can use, and like, "Oh, how are you going?" Blah blah blah, and they're like, "Oh, leave me alone, leave me alone." Sort of look on their faces,
I mean, what got you into it? What got you into drawing?
Well, I'm a daydreamer, a chronic daydreamer. I was as a little kid when growing up. I was always adrift in my own head. In fact, I remember when I saw Star Wars, I thought, this is his fantasy. Luke Skywalker. I thought, I know this, and I knew what his lightsabers were. A stainless steel torch from my kid, including the ring at the back. I thought, I know this because I did those same games. And I didn't think of turning it into a sword, but so I was a chronic daydreamer. I was always off in my own world.
I would have thought it'd be something like comics, like Superman or
The
Phantom and
well, they were the
Mad magazines.
Oh, Mad magazine particularly, yeah. I loved Mad magazines. I can still quote all their names. In fact, I met the editor of Mad magazine back in 2012 when he came over to Australia for the Stanley Awards, which we held in Newcastle at the time.
Yeah.
And he was a lovely fellow, but the Mad magazine was in its autumn by then.
Yeah.
They'd gradually sort of faded off, and it was sort of over for Mad, really. But the Sergio Aragon, Mort Drucker, I know every name, and they were brilliant. They sort of got screwed over by the publisher.
Yeah.
They didn't, when their books were published, they didn't get a cent from that. It's really American style publishing system, where the boss gets everything and the workers just have to work like it's. Yeah, these guys were famous, absolutely famous, but he kept them on a very short leash.
But apart from the animation part of it, I suppose, did you take a liking to the actual cartoonist, like a Charles Schultz, the Peanuts?
I love Schultz. I love Peanuts back in the early days, in the 50s and 60s. Yeah, I was brilliant, especially when Snoopy turned himself into a World War I aviator. I mean, that was just a blinder. Then he was just worldwide famous. People still wearing the T-shirts. Schultz, everybody loved him as an artist and as a creator. I can't say that he was particularly funny after the first 20 years or so, because I think that one thing I've noticed about cartoon strips is they have a lifespan.
Yeah.
And then get to about 20 years, and it's sort of it's a very limited. It's like trying to do something. It's like trying to do ships in a bottle. It's very compressed. You've got to create all these different humour every day from a very tiny little concept. And some people, like one American cartoonist, quit at the 15-year mark, and they've been the name will come to me later, but everybody knows the strip, and it was world famous. Great humour, and he quit at the peak.
Yeah.
And he left people wanting. But most cartoonists, they milk the cow till it's not just dry, but dry as a real old biscuit.
Charles Schultz, he milked it all right. I mean, 50 years,
Yep.
1950 to the year 2000, which was the year Schultz died,
Yep.
17,897 strips published,
Yep.
making it the largest story ever told by one human being. It ran in 2,600 newspapers with a readership of 355 million across 75 countries, and it made him over $1 billion.
Yep.
I'd be milking that cow.
I'll be milking that cow. Well, that's it. See, you've got when there's some. It's a bit like making movies. When you get to a certain scale, there's so much momentum you can't get off that bus. Quite often, a lot of them do ghosting. I'll get another artist in to do the ghosting. I know a cartoonist at the moment who uses a ghost. He's also losing his eyesight, which is really awful. In fact, Schultz quit, not because he ran out of ideas. He quit because his hands shook so much. And Schultz's style requires a tremendous precision. When I was in high school, I was trying to draw his cartoons, like mimic them. I couldn't hold my hand steady enough to do that thing. So, and in fact, my hands are shaking in old age, but somehow it stops when I'm drawing, which is sort of weird.
I thought they were shaking because you're worried about how you're going to draw me.
Speak of the devil.
How's it going, by the way?
I haven't started yet. This interview finishing now, is it? I thought it was good for a while. I wasn't in a hurry.
You graduated in fine arts, and in your travels, you've worked as a pizza cook, a labourer, a taxi driver, and a ballet dancer.
Yep, that's right.
That's a pretty good concoction before you become a cartoonist.
Well, that's right. I did a bit of living. In fact, I remember I had one editor who I remember he started at the Herald as a cadet, and then he rose eventually to editor-in-chief. But that's all he'd done. When I say all he'd done, I mean, he'd been to other newspapers, but he just stayed in that trade. But every time something came up in the conference, I said, "Oh, yeah, I've done that." And he said, and then one day, once too often, he said, "Is there anything you haven't done?"
But even a taxi driver, I mean, back then, that was a skill because back then there was no GPSs.
No.
You had to have, your head used to have a Gregory's book inside it, didn't you?
Well, Newcastle's not a big place, thankfully. Though I remember, I didn't know, like Hassel Street. Ever heard of Hassel Street?
Oh, I do, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of hassles in Hassel Street. Yes. It's well named, but there was a rank there, and there's other ranks. But the funny thing with cab, I had a lot of adventures in cab driving. I was only did it for 3 or 4 years. But any cab driver can tell you lots of stories, and
especially night shifts.
Oh, well, that's all I did, night shifts, because it wasn't worth it doing in the day. I mean, you sit around all the time. The night shifts, but then the fun would start, and nearly got my head punched in a couple of times. And but the funny thing was, when I was doing you have all these sheets of locations that you got to remember, and 2 pages at churches.
Yep.
You know, it was 6 months before I did a single church job, and I was out in Lambton somewhere, and I took these 4 girls to this wedding, and then I went and pulled up on the rank, and about half an hour later, I got a call back to that church, and I picked up the girls and said, "That was a short wedding." He said, "Oh, the bride never turned up." But you know what I did get? And they didn't have pages for those. It was all the brothels. I remember this guy on my very first shift. Right, my very first shift, there's a bloke jumps into the car. He says 687. And I'm, what, 687 what? And he looked at me. He said, 687 Hunter Street. Yeah, the brothel, mate. Yeah. How long have you been doing this job? Oh, about half an hour.
You know what? All the things we're going to talk about with you today, the last thing I would think we'll be talking to Peter Lewis about is a brothel.
Yeah, that's right.
But ballet dancing, what happened there?
Well,
I say that like, oh, I'm so sorry.
That's all right. That's all right, Michael. I can talk about that.
Is that why you didn't continue?
No. What happened was when I was finishing art school, I wanted to get up some real work out there, doing the skills I developed. Hopefully to get some money out of it. But anyway, there was a lot. Somebody said, "Why don't you try amateur theatre?" So I started going around to amateur theatres and amateur groups and doing unpaid work. And I did. I took on too much, and anyway, but I discovered these people in Wallsend. Warwick and Maureen ran a ballet company called, and eventually became Newmet Ballet Company, Newcastle Metropolitan. And Maureen was a brilliant choreographer, and Warwick was a husband and director. And so they had this small ballet company, and they became my best friends. They were just, that was my bohemian experience, and it was like the life that sort of got me out of home, because I was still living at home at the time, and it got me out there, and it became a whole new life. And so because I was physically fit, because I was doing martial arts, and Maureen noticed that, because you always need more guys. She actually had quite a substantial number of guys in the trip. So she got me doing background stuff. Well, no, I wasn't I wasn't up the front. You put me up the back there. I remember because I was a scruffy character, and then when I actually had to come out in tights or nothing, the girls just started laughing. No respect. But I actually used that recently I'm in Toastmasters. I did a Toastmasters speech, and it was on how to pick up girls. I had a lot of fun with that one.
You know, when you just said that you in tights, the first thing I thought, we'll be going back to the cartoon series Peanuts. Yep. So, how did you start becoming a cartoonist from that though? Like, I mean, was it just you got a job leading up to the Herald, or were you doing stuff like this before the Herald? Or?
Well, I'd done a little bit of cartooning. I'd done a bit of artworks for the ballet company and a lot of other places. And I thought I was a cartoonist. And I thought, editorial cartooning, how hard is that?
Yep.
Yeah, right. Well, it was as I said earlier, it was hard. And it was a lot harder than I thought. And then after about 6 months, I realised that this was going to be a long apprenticeship.
Yeah.
And some people were patient with me, because I was a bit hit and miss in the early days, and you've got to carry people like that, because in a sense I was doing my apprenticeship on the job. I had the art ability there, I didn't have the like if if I said to you, think up a joke on I don't know, wombats or something, but don't tell me a joke that you've heard, and you'd be like, So that's what happens. So every day you'd be like, think up a cartoon on follow on in cricket or something. Like at the sports department, wasn't exactly they weren't exactly fond of me sometimes. So they'd come over and ask stupid questions, which to them was stupid, and so they'd have to explain it to me, because to some extent, being a bit of an artistic nerd, my sport skills and knowledge were sort of diminished. So that was a steep learning curve as well.
But even going for the job at the Herald, when the last cartoonist left, was the editor just go, hang on, can we just find a local editorial cartoonist? There must be one lying around somewhere. You can't just pluck them out of the sky. So did you have to do a bit of fancy talking, or?
Well, as I was saying, there was he'd burned through about 6 or 7 of them between me and Lumsden. He was difficult. He demanded a lot. In fact, one of my immediate predecessors was a guy I actually knew personally. He was a lovely guy, quite a tall guy, but quite sort of not. I wouldn't describe him as timid, but he didn't like angry people or whatever. And anyway, so he lasted about 6 months. But part of his problem was that in order to cope with the editor, he used to smoke dope in his car on the way to work. Well, the trouble is he lived right out at Warner's Bay, so by the time he got to work, he was a bit half cut. So that didn't help him either. And he wasn't a bad cartoonist, but he was only doing little pocket tunes. So when I turned up, I knew what I was in for.
Yeah,
that's a very important thing. So I had a lot of advantage over the other characters who came before me, and also too, I was really determined to have the job. I mean, I didn't go in there half baked. I went in. I really wanted that job, and even then, he still held me on freelance for 8 months. But then I said to him one day, I said, look, I'm driving taxi shifts while I'm doing all this. And I said, I can't do both, and I've got a new baby at home, blah, blah, blah. I said, yeah. And he said, yeah, that's good. He said, so he hired me.
Yeah.
And away we went from there.
Is it like a fine wine where you just get better with age?
I think it's a wine that you might have to give it a bit of a shake or turn it. It's one of those ones you got to turn it in the wine rack a bit. You got to work on that wine a bit, or it goes to vinegar.
But do you feel like you got better?
I got more consistent.
Yeah.
I did refine the skills. Yeah, so there we go. Yeah. I refined the skills that I already had, but the ideas, I became consistent. That's what I was really working for.
Yeah.
It's one thing to have I won a few awards, but the day-by-day thing, you have a cartoon that was like a bit, you knew you hadn't quite got there, you sort of got there, but you sort of didn't.
Yeah.
And you just got to go with what you got.
Yeah.
And one of the problems, as I'm talking about earlier, it's about the word no, is you might come up with this cracking idea, and then you get the word no from the editor, and it's like, there's a perfectly good idea, but he's worried about offending readers, and it's like, what? Hang on, it's like you're a dog that's been brought in, and you not only can't bite, you can't bark.
Yeah,
So you've got to find an idea that's mundane enough to be acceptable, but at the same time funny enough to make people laugh. And the one positive from that I can think of is that's probably why most people like me in Newcastle, because I haven't had a chance to offend them. The irony of that, though, of course, the other one too, of course, I recently, Jeff McCloy, the Newcastle developer and businessman, died recently. And I put a little thing on my Facebook page about him.
Yeah.
He's a very, very interesting man. And you might say I got to know him pretty well because he sued me back in 1995.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he sued me. But he was a big collector of my cartoons. That was when he was going through a whole Greenpoint thing.
Well, that's your latest one.
That's
of
right,
them, wasn't it?
That's right. So that was done for one of his friends. She hired me to do a cartoon for his 75th birthday.
Yeah.
I looked through the photographs and I thought, I don't think Jeff's real well. So I made sure I used some of his earlier photographs to get the likeness.
Get back to him suing you?
Yeah, well, back in 95, he was collecting my cartoons and they're around his boardroom wall, but then I did one he didn't like. And so he sued the newspaper, but effectively he was suing me. And it was pretty stressful.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you've ever been threatened with legal action, but it's sort of like being dragged. It's like in early times, if somebody misbehaved, they keel haul you, which means they drag you underneath the boat. I felt like I was being keel hauled every day. I'd wake up in the morning, I think, oh, my name is Peter Lewis, and I speak English, and I'm being sued, and then the rest of your day just goes to custody.
But was it about him? He
felt he'd been defamed. He felt the cartoon defamed him.
Right, okay.
Which was a moot point because nearly every cartoon is defamatory.
Yeah.
And I thought he could take it, but there was a misinterpretation that you could apply to it. So there's a sort of you can see a cartoon, but it can be viewed several different ways. So it can be viewed one way, which is the intent, but then it can be viewed another way, which is defamatory. So anyway, so he went on. In the end, I think there was some sort of settlement for that. No money was exchanged, but basically I think we were using a local solicitor for the case who had a big panic attack. We're in between editors at the time, and the acting editor had a panic attack. So I wasn't in a good place.
Yeah.
And so they just sort of gave an apology or something. But then a few weeks later, we had the head of Fairfax Legal came up from Sydney, and possibly because of what had just happened, and also to talk to me personally. He did a lecture. Very interesting. The penalties for defamation are extraordinary. Mm-hmm. 30 years ago, the penalty's 1.3 million, and the legal costs were about 200 grand for a court case.
Yeah.
So, but he said, in his opinion, there would have been no apology. He said the guy was just bullying, bluff and bluster.
I mean, it would have been a bad look. I mean, suing Peter Lewis is like killing Bambi.
Or shooting, maybe more like killing a kookaburra.
But in regards to, did you kiss and make up, or have you?
I didn't cartoon him for years after that because I just kept right away from him, and he went quiet too. I actually think he wanted a bit of a break after Greenpoint, and possibly it was a part of a strategy to just get him off, get us off his back.
Right. What was it about Greenpoint? Was it?
Well, no, it wasn't about Greenpoint. It was about the Civic Centre redevelopment.
Right.
But I won't go down that road again. But it was it was about him trying to get the Civic Precinct rebuilt. In the end, he actually got the Herald rebuilt, so that was an interesting little spin.
He did too.
But anyway, so about 10, 15 years went by, and then I did some cartoon on him. Anyway, next thing it's just like it never happened.
Yeah.
And so he was quite, he'd ring me up sometimes and we talk about stuff. And then when he became mayor, he was very keen to have me sort of.
But would that have been hard for you? Because if he put you through the ringer all that time, was it a case of it was hard to forgive and forget?
No, not for me. Maybe I've just got a very short attention span or something. But I'm not a vindictive person, and I'm just happy for it all we all go back to pretending that everything's normal. It's like having an argument with somebody in the family. Eventually, you think the only way I'm going to get out of this is just to pretend it never happened. So anyway, years went by, and then we were like it never happened. And then the funny thing was that when I was made redundant back in 2016. He rang me up personally. One of the few people to ring me up personally. He said, "Did they really let you go?" And I said, "Yeah, they did, mate. Yeah, they did." He said, "Oh, that's a shame. I love your cartoons." And he said, "Why don't you come round to the Lucky?" He owned the Lucky Hotel. And he said, "Come around, I'll shout your lunch, mate. We'll have a few laughs." And we did. It was great. We had beautiful lunch, and we had, we talked about the past and had a bit of a giggle over the court case and blah, blah, blah. It was like, and then it's like, and so the funny thing was, I remember on one occasion, my wife and I were just driving around. We lived in Cameron Park at this point, and Jeff had a lot of development going on over there. So there he is in his open-top Daimler, and he pulled up next to me at a set of traffic lights in Cameron Park area. And my wife said, "Go on, say hello to Jeff. Go on, say hello to Jeff." And I said, "Nah, he's probably too busy. Go on, say hello. Go on. So I went, "Hey, Jeff." And there's Jeff sitting there in his car, and you could actually see his shoulders sag like what now? And I said, "Jeff," and he'd turn around like this. He went, "Oh, g'day, mate. How you going? Blah, blah, blah." It's like we had a conversation there, a set of traffic lights. The lights changed green. We kept on talking. It's like, how do you explain that?
He got offside with me a little bit once. We did a story when he was redeveloping the Lucky Country, when he was, before it all, got put together. And so it was a construction site, and so we got him in there and, we do the interview. And I said, "What we'd really like, Jeff, is for you to get on the shovel, get on the tools and start getting some debris and putting into the wheelbarrow."
Oh, yeah.
So he didn't want to. I said, "Come on, this will just show you the working man's mayor, And so he's doing, and as he's doing, he goes, "You're going to use this again for something?" We're, "No, we won't use it again." All of a sudden, the ICAC thing comes up. Jeff McCloy digging his own grave. And I was just thinking, you'd be at the television set going, "Oh, that Michael Caine." Just in regards to, is this a dying art?
Oh, absolutely. I did a thing in an interview 30 years ago. I described cartoonists as canaries in the coal mine, and those canaries aren't chirping much anymore.
Yeah,
they're,
yeah, absolutely.
And so, like my cartoonist mate Scott Standis in America, a lovely guy. I've been over there a couple of times and hung out with him and his really lovely wife. And Scott was the Chicago Tribune cartoonist. Now we're talking like magnify the Newcastle Herald by like a scale of 10 at least.
Yeah.
So there's a huge august building that they actually use for Batman movies. And so I was visiting Scott when the same thing happened to him that happened to me. Like the Herald pulled out of its historic building and went over to Honeysuckle.
Yep.
And he was pulled out and they were all moved over to some office blocks, just some meaningless big Rubik's cubes there in the rest of Chicago. And so I was just there. And he said, "Oh, can you help me move my stuff?" Because he had all his souvenirs. So he got this sort of trolley and loaded all his treasures into this trolley, all his awards and all this paraphernalia. And away we went through the cold, windy streets of Chicago with the wheels on the thing going, yeah. It was sort of like a Zhivago sort of look to it, like, and I remember thinking it's like a parallel universe. And he actually won a Rubens Award, and it's like, so it doesn't matter who you were on, where you were on the level of cartoonists, and there's just no work there anymore for these guys, and
it's a shame because to me, a cartoonist in a newspaper really added something to a newspaper, didn't it?
Well, I couldn't understand why we were one of the first guys to get the chop everywhere. I mean, but Rupert Murdoch did the same thing with his art teams and his cartoons. He kept his editorial cartoonist, but he's got much deeper pockets than Fairfax ever had. And as long as they sort of mirrored his views of the universe, but the cartoon strips just died like that. Yeah. Boom, gone. Yeah. He actually eliminated them right across the board.
Yeah.
And as if they meant nothing. And that seemed to me really crazy, but they must have done surveys or something that said, well, everybody's so inundated with images off their phones, off their TV, off their screens, that it just makes it pointless. So cartoonists now, look, art has always been a fringe dwelling existence. Now, okay, Michelangelo was famous, blah, 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 but that's that's the very pinnacle of the pyramid of the profession. Artists of all trades have always found it rough going. My second daughter's a tattoo artist, and she's doing quite well because tattooing is sort of hitting the top of the bell curve.
Yeah.
But if she hadn't been doing tattoos, she'd still be working at Officeworks.
Yeah.
And she's a highly skilled artist.
Yeah.
She can do on skin, what I do on paper, in full colour. And so artists have always had skills beyond their capacity to make money, unless they have entrepreneurial or look. Marketing is the king. That's an art form that trumps all art forms, as Trump himself has proven. Marketing is the god. If you can harness marketing as an artist, man, you're going to, like Ken Doan did. I mean, a couple of splashes of paint on a shirt or a thing. Oh my God, it's such a genius. Well, what? It's a couple of splashes of paint. Yeah. But he did it with style and marketing. He was a marketing expert. So was his wife. Yeah. They were designers from the marketing industry. Yeah. Who's the guy who did the tomato cans? The American artist. Suddenly I can't remember his name. Yeah, he did Marilyn Monroe and... I'll remember his name when I'm walking down the street after this. Right. But he came from marketing as well. Marketing is what really defines the financial success of your trade. Salvador Dali had an agent. So did Picasso. They had agents who went out there and made them very rich men. Okay, they had the skills, but they had great self-marketing. They had fantastic opportunists. I've seen fantastic artwork by really gifted artists. You'll never know their name. Yeah. And they're probably making plumbers and electricians just to make ends meet.
And I suppose too, like we spoke just before we came on in regards to AI. Yeah. And I think we nearly bring this up for every person we've had on since, because at some point it's AI is now becoming part of their business and sometimes overtaking their business. Yep. I mean, these days you can say, draw me an animated, Bugs Bunny with a lime green coat on, and it's there in seconds.
Yep, that's right.
That's would have been a massive game changer to anyone that's even wants to get into this field.
This has happened before to artists, creatives, twice that I can think of as easy examples. Pottery. For example, all utensils are made by the local potter. Like you'd have the silversmith, you'd have the blacksmith, and you have the potter. And he made all your cups and saucers and plates and things all over the world. They were everywhere. Every village would have a potter. Along came industrial pottery. Poof! Yep. Gone. And not only that, but every single cup was perfect. Every single plate was perfect. I mean, it made Stoke-on-Trent very, very rich back 100 years ago. Now they're very poor, but they're very rich for a while there. And gave a lot of people silicosis as well. But the point is that so that knocked out a lot of creatives in the pottery industry, but that still exists. Yeah. Because people now do like different things, more craft things or more personal things. But it's a tiny industry in comparison to what it was. Then along came photography. Now artists like me I wouldn't have bothered going to cartooning back 200, 300 years ago because I would have just been full-time just doing people's portraits because that's how you recorded life. Yeah. There was no cameras. So, and of course you'd have the salon artists who do Ulysses at the entering blah, 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 or Anthony and Cleopatra, all that classical stuff. And, but then you'd have like Freddie Bloggs, the local grocer, wants his portrait for his wall, or a local, or Lord Salmonary wants his such and such to put next to his father and grandfather on the wall down there in the chapel. So you'd have that was the trade. Yeah. Photography comes along, poof, gone. So there are all these artists wandering around going, I think I'm starving. So in France, it's hit particularly hard, and it led to what we call the Salon de Refuse. And the Salon de Refuse is interesting, because the king at the time, King Napoleon III or whatever he was approached by artists who had been rejected by the Salon. If you if you weren't accepted by the academy, you were out. You basically didn't have a job. And of course, the academy was still back 100 years before. It was still doing, like licking the paint and working only with oils, and you had to do it it was as controlled as the French language is controlled. And if you fell outside that realm, no work. So they approached the king, all these artists who were going begging, they approached the king and he said, just to shut them up. He had salon de refuse, or how refuse, I don't know how you pronounce that. And so it was rejected art. And it was a big deal. And people loved it. They thought, this stuff's great. Oh, look, it's so lively and different, isn't it? And that led to the Impressionists, because photography had wiped out all the realism.
Yep.
So these guys came in along at the right time and said, I can do daubs of paint on there and I can sell it. Oh, my God. And Van Gogh, of course, only sold one in his lifetime, but moving along, he got $100 million for his latest paintings, for one of those few paintings. So anyway, now the funny part was that about 10 years ago, 15 years ago, the Newcastle Business Club wanted to do a thing for Bastille Day, and they thought, well, why don't we have a salon de refuse, talk about salon de refuse about it. And they rang me up. And they said, we'd love you to come along and talk. And do you know anything about rejected art? Do I know anything about rejected art? You come to the right place. That word no is sort of I think I've got it tattooed on my chest. So I thought, okay, I'll give you a speech. I had boxes of rejected ideas, all just a sketch form. I remember I had one particular editor I used to call Dr. No. I had him for about 5 years. I swear that I've never had so many rejected cards. On one occasion, I sort of got cranky and I started sticking all the rejects up on my office wall. The trouble is it covered the entire wall in a single month. And he came in and he said, what's this all about? I said, all the cartoons you rejected. He roared with laughter and walked out. So anyway, so I actually agreed to do it. I said, yes, I'll talk about rejected, blah, blah, blah. There's only one little problem. The editor was on the Newcastle Business Class mailing list.
Oh, no.
And he wasn't very happy about it. He never spoke about it, but it was very icy in the editorial conferences for some time after that.
I take it would have been pretty icy the day you were told there's the door at the Herald. Or did you see it coming?
Oh, yeah, I did. Well, I nearly bought the farm 3 years before in the first purge. Because as the classifieds were diminishing, which was the real, it's the real rivers of gold, as the classifieds were in trouble and our subscribership was still pretty good. We're actually doing better than the rest of Fairfax. In fact, if you were thinking of Fairfax as a fleet of ships, the battleships were the ones that were sinking, and this tiny little destroyer over here was just sort of punting along rather nicely. In fact, we made more money than the Sydney Herald the year before. Exactly. And our reward was to be gutted. It was just crazy, absolutely crazy, because once you start gutting something, then the service people are used to, because it took us many years to. I'll just rewind a little bit. The Newcastle Herald was always Newcastle's paper for years and years and years. Now that same editor, who I worked for and got to like and was very impressed by, he was, like I said, he wasn't a good fit for Newcastle, and that readership just went down like a rock, and it continued to decline no matter what we did. So we went tabloid. And then we put a huge effort into becoming Newcastle's newspaper again. And that's very important. Yeah. Because if you have to be synonymous with your audience has to feel they own you.
Yes.
And we were doing really well. We were making heaps of money, possibly because the coal industry was doing rather well. And people had money to burn, literally. And so we had our reward was to be gutted the first time. So we went from 320 people down to 150 or something. And I missed that one. And I remember sitting there thinking at the time, well, if I can get another 3 years out of this place, I guess I better be grateful. And that's exactly what I got. But so there we were all called into this big room, and like 100 people or something from around the building. And we're on TV to the other things where Fairfax HQ told us that, there's cuts being made. And the deputy editor on my behalf said, what's happening with the Cartoonist? And then they sort of, he's being, mumble. They said, what? And they said, no, he's being shown, he's gone. And so everybody looked at me and I went, nah, whatever. At least we've got redundancy in Australia. Yeah. I mean, I got quite a nice redundancy after 30 years. And I actually also talked the editor in giving me another 3 months, because Lumsden had 30 years. I thought, I'd like my 30 years, thank you. And he said, well, okay, I'll give you another 3 months. And we'll call it quits on the anniversary of your 30-year mark. So you got to, we'll make a big deal of it. It was good. and we left on good terms. You know, lovely people. The editors for the last years, really good quality people, and it was nice to be treated with respect because some editors weren't so great, but but they're all very interesting and very intelligent. And that was always impressive. But sometimes I guess I came across like a bit of a brat when you rejected my cartoon. Actually, that's how I wanted to sound. Actually, what I said, you rejected my cartoon. You want to rend them, and they don't.
I think you need to go on the speaking circuit on stage for this. Some of the.
Well, I have actually, and I have to be very careful about defamation.
At Elk Architecture, we don't just design buildings, we shape the spaces where life happens. From concept to construction, our award-winning architects bring our vision to life with precision, passion, and purpose. Whether it's your dream home or your next big commercial project, trust Elk Architecture to build what matters most. Elk Architecture, designed for life, built for the future.
Sad the way that newspapers have gone, but I suppose it's just
it's replacement that's the problem. And when I do, a lot of people want media lectures, and I'll give you exactly that. And I like to think of newspapers as being a rational being, a compromise, as against social media, which has no rules, laws, or provisions. And I don't want to offend any medical professionals, but because we're all on the autism spectrum in one form or another, somewhere on that sliding scale, right? Nobody escapes that. I mean, apparently Australian males are about 7 on the scale, I average, and I think girls are on a 6. Either they're 7, they're just disguising themselves, And they're better networkers. So I know autistic women who seem perfectly normal because they're such networkers. They're used to sort of, we're all sort of like, oh, we'll go and have a beer at the pub, sort of, a better footy, and not stare at each other while we're talking, So blokes, the autism in blokes is pretty self-revealing. So that was a bit of a diversion, but the point of it is that newspapers are like a functioning, brackets, normal thing where, as a human being, you gather information around you through your 5 senses. And then you bring it all into your brain, and then your brain edits it. It is a simple fact that everything we see and hear and experience is very edited by our brain, by our biases, by our previous knowledge, by anything that might be threatening, by anything that makes us anxious. It all goes through this filter. It's a bit like Murdering Gully sewage works. It all goes through this thing, and it filters all out. So it's nice and clean at the end when it goes to your actual forebrain, which goes, oh, thank God for that. I thought that was going to be really bad news. Oh, my father died. Oh, my God. So it's like your brain processes it all out. And so newspapers are like that. So newspapers, all the journalists go out, scurrying out there like little mice and gathering all this information, bringing it all back, and then it goes to the sub-editors, and then it goes to the editors, and then the end thing is all leavened and perfect and wonderful and balanced, hopefully. And so then you get this nice clean stream of pure water, pure thought that comes out, right? Theoretically. Maybe not so much at the Murdoch newspapers, but moving along. Anyway, so the...
We'll get to them later.
Yeah, we'll get to them later. How many hours do you want to spend?
They're not off the hook, mate.
They're not off the hook. So anyway, so you get this nice clean thing. But social media is like autism, like somebody with more chronic autism. And let's put it this way. And I wrote a short story once to amplify the difference, the comparison, which is one was from a viewpoint of a guy, anyway, a guy going to see his autistic son, and he describes it in simple terms. It was just a one-page story by the guy and how he saw it. But then the other perspective was the son is autistic, and the son was looking out the window, seeing his father coming down there, and he heard the tyres crunching on the gravel. He saw the shine of the sunlight on the bonnet. He saw all this other detail. He heard everything. He heard every sound. But couldn't edit it. That's one of the core problems of autism. They really struggle to edit the information. Now, when you take off the sub-editing teams and all the other things in a newspaper, I mean, that's a lot of stuff. And the good part about newspapers is if you read any newspaper, you're going to have stuff that you like and don't like all mixed together.
Yeah.
And that's very healthy for a human mind. That's really healthy. But that's not how algorithms work on social media. Algorithms work on the principle, oh, you like that one, did you? Oh, I'll give you more, and I'm only going to give you that. And so, oh, you really like that article on,
Yeah.
Oh, you like Elon Musk? I'll give you Elon Musk. Elon Musk is a god, blah, 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 blah. And then next thing you know, you think, oh, Elon Musk is a really wonderful person who does everything. What? So it's like, it's a form of autistic reaction where you're living from one dopamine to the next, but it's so much information. Doom scrolling is the key word now. And I find myself that if I don't have sort of more healthy distractions, then it's sort of like I feel overwhelmed. And everybody apparently now has ADHD. I don't know how that happened, but we're all showing the signs of it because we're bombarded. And so this is the tragedy of this new technology. It's given us all the world's information in one single package. I hear and I obey.
I mean, just on ADHD. I mean, you got these kids getting diagnosed with that, and then they're on drugs at an early age. I mean, you sort of think to yourself, what are they going to be like when they're in their 20s?
They turn into cartoonists, probably.
I don't think you had any medication just quite.
How did you notice that? I have no idea what you're talking about.
We've got the straitjacket over there.
The funny thing is, I did an autism test. Okay, it was only an online one, so I tried to be honest. Like I was saying that 7 is sort of a average Australian male, and 14 is when you're starting to get really hampered by it, when your life is really becoming miserable because of it, or you're sort of totally dislocated and you can't look people. I was 2. Hard to believe. I was actually down the other end of the scale. I thought, well, that could explain why I can't self-manage and why I have to use this thing to figure out every calendar thing. Like this appointment here, I had to make sure that was in, double click and blah, 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 because I have struggled with, sort of micromanaging stuff that the Rain Men sort of really like,
Yeah.
I'll never be an accountant.
You won't be doing my taxes. But I mean, I worked for News Limited for a small while. Don't hate me. I know you don't like them.
The people are people. It's the boss I have a problem with.
Yeah. But the thing was that I was only there for about 3 months, and it got to the point where, and again, it wasn't about the newspaper. It was obviously everything was online. It was about subscribe, getting more subscribers. So you ended to the point where you were actually having to do stories on what people would subscribe to, which I find just like a pigeonhole. It's almost like, well, hang on. So they were sending me to court every day, and I said, "Why?" And I hate court. I only hate court because if you make a mistake, you can get a court case thrown out.
And you get a lot of trouble.
Absolutely.
And get the sack.
Yeah, absolutely. So they'd send me there, but sometimes it's very boring too. You could be sitting there all day and nothing happens. Case adjourned, because my client was sick. So then I'd call the bosses in Sydney and say, "What do you want me to write?" And they'd say, "Okay, just rewrite the original story. We'll put where the woman stabbed the man to death. We'll put a different headline, sensational headline on it. People will think it's a different story.
Clickbait.
They'll click. We got another subscriber." And I went, that was the day I said, "This isn't journalism. This is trickery. I'm out of here."
It's money. It's always been about money, but it's more money than it is about content.
But the thing was too is I'm sad because there's so many good stories, especially in Newcastle, that I'd love to do a story on. But because they go, "Oh, well, that's not going to get the clicks or as many clicks," you'll keep you down the one that's going to be getting them. And it's sort of like, well, why don't you give this area a chance to build up so as people start doing that? But again, it's all about, and the sad thing about it, it's these subscribers are keeping journalists in jobs. It's like a rat on the treadmill,
Well, Rupert, not to wax too much about Rupert, but Rupert practiced on us for years. And he first came to my notice when I remember I used to notice him more because the Daily Mirror was sort of a bit more sleazy than the rest of the papers. And it was when you have a page 3 girl and all that sort of stuff, and lots of sleazy little scandals and stuff through it. And that's when I sort of, back in the 60s, I think, was when I sort of noticed that, and that Rupert Murdoch had developed that reputation for getting down in the mud a bit, waddle around, get things stirred up a bit, get a bit of a action. And so it was but his political manipulation started in 1972 with the It's Time campaign, ironically supporting Whitlam, because I think he thought it was time, and he pushed the whole It's Time campaign, which was very good for them, for the ALP. They punched through up to about 20 or 30 years of conservative rule. But then he realised that Gough was, like, oh my God, a socialist. And so it was he turned against him, and he drove the anti-ALP campaign, and it never really changed since then. But what it did have is the effect is if you wanted to rule Australia, if you wanted to be in government or be Prime Minister, you had to go and kiss the papal ring. You had to go and or tugging a forelock. It's like and if you didn't do that, like what's his name again? My memory's a bit glitchy with names. Shorten. Shorten failed to kiss the papal ring. He was invited to pay court to His Majesty and didn't, and paid the price. Because it's a very powerful thing, the Murdoch Empire. Very powerful in Australia. But he still couldn't get what he wanted here, other than just maybe an increase in his ability to spread his media, like a cross-media thing. Hawke gave him a bit of that and increased his power in order to be able to get a bit more easier ride. So Hawke was very smart. And Rudd did that too when he first started. He went through the tradition of courting the power that be. But invariably, Rupert wants what he wants. But we're really resistant to radicalisation here in Australia. We're too much into fair go. We get excited for about 10 minutes and think, what's on the TV, or what's the footy, or blah blah blah. We're a bit drifty. We're not prone to evangelism. We're just not good material for what Rupert was trying to sell. But he practiced on it, and then in 1986 he went to America with the express purpose of appealing to conservative audiences. And he said it. He actually said that. And so for the next 20 years, he was building up his thing. He got these real hardliners, all these characters, and that really knew their stuff. And of course, it was a perfect audience. Americans are conservative by nature. Well, much more than we are. They're more religious than we are. So they have more. They're conservatives in getting their guns. So you just look at what they love, which is guns, religion, sport. He gave them what they wanted, and then added his own spin. Here we are. And it's strange that they keep talking about, Americans are going crazy. No, they've not crazy. They've always been crazies within that group. Forever, always. They've always had this contingent of people who are very prone to very conservative thinking. But he fed them. And of course, with the algorithms and social media, here we are. And Trump would never have been elected the first time without Fox. And the irony is that Rupert doesn't even like Fox. Doesn't even like Trump. He doesn't even like Trump. So that came out in the emails that Dominion voting machines got when they were suing him, suing Fox for defamation. And if they'd kept on going, they could have destroyed Fox. But Rupert saw the writing on the wall and settled for $780 million or something. And so dodged the thing again. That nobody can bell this cat. He's skipped like hacking inquiry. So that's my problem. I don't have a problem with the people who work within that empire, except maybe the talking heads and opinion writers. But he's forever not being noticed as one of the core reasons why they're in this position.
Here's a hypothetical. If News Limited came to you, said, we want you to be our cartoonist, would you have taken it?
I very much doubt it, unless I was really desperate for money. And if I did take it, I'd be doing it on my terms. Whether giving cartoons they probably wouldn't want. I remember Bill Leake when he was working for the Sydney Herald. I visited him in his office about 30 years ago. Lovely guy, Bill Leake. Really amazing brain. You think I'm a bit manic. You haven't seen anything. I remember when I walked into his office, he was actually doing a big cartoon of a kangaroo sticking its head up its own arse. And everything, he was so left-wing, he was like unbelievable. And then he went to Murdoch Media, and then a few years go by, and it's like, holy cow. I remember when he was accused of being racist in a cartoon, and I thought, well, I'm not going to judge him on one cartoon. So I went back through what he'd been doing for the past few months, because we're all available on media. I thought, I'm afraid that's sort of my opinion too.
Yeah.
It was pretty brutal stuff, very far to the right. I mean, really far to the right, which actually is a suspicion of mine that people who have very powerful extreme opinions can actually flick from one end of the spectrum to the other.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas most people sort of in the middle tend to, anyway, that's only a personal.
Well, I suppose a little bit like you look at Leunig.
Yeah.
Michael Leunig. I mean, he just passed away late last year. I mean, not long after he was axed by The Age, he described it as a throat cutting exercise, which is pretty much what you went through. What did you think when that news came out after getting axed by the Newcastle Herald that no one's indispensable?
Oh, I think we all knew we were very dispensable. I don't think anybody in media, even back 30 years ago, thought that they were sacred.
Yeah, I mean, his works. I mean,
yep.
It's almost simple but effective, wasn't it?
Well, he works on the very first premise of brevity is the soul of wit. I think that's a Shakespearean comment. Minimalism. I always strove for minimalism, even though my cartoons are often quite heavily decorated and quite sometimes very visually complicated. That comes from my fine arts background, which was actually a dragging anchor because the less is more. And Leunig had that to an absolute mastery, partly because he's not a particularly great technician. I know people be like, oh, he's a beautiful artist. Yeah, well, he might be a beautiful artist, but he's not a great technician.
Yeah.
But I remember when I saw my first Leunig book back, 40-something years ago, 50 years ago, I was just, really blown away by it. But it was his best of.
Yeah.
But the difference is that when you get best of, you have best of Lewis, you think, I'm really great. But you see every cartoon every day, and you see the differential.
Yeah.
So his day-by-day stuff could be very hit and miss.
Yeah.
Because when you're that existential and that sort of pseudo-philosophical, sometimes you can get it, sometimes you don't. But when he got it right, man, he was really, really good. I mean, so many cartoons that I remember seeing in that first book are stuck in my head after all these years, like the electric nose polishing machine and Mr. Curly but now there's been statements that the world's gone all politically correct and that's why he took a bullet. I don't know, because there was always something judgmental about his cartoons. I try not to be judgmental. Like one of the things, my artist daughter got really ticked off with one of his cartoons where he's criticising mothers for sitting there on their mobile phones with their babies. Really harsh cartoon. Yeah. And she was really upset and angry about that. So, but that's not political correctness. That's actually making a judgmental observation.
But you feel his pencil got sharpened, like something like this, more later life, which got him into more trouble. It was almost like, was he like a cage lion where it sort of built up to the end where he went, now I'm going to start just doing what I want?
Well, I think part of his problem is he did have mental health issues. He was known for bursting into tears at his desk for no apparent reason. So he wasn't like a fully stable, low anxiety type at all. He was quite strung. But people like that tend to drift into things like anti-vaxxing, like that anti-vax cartoon. I mean, anti-vaxxing, seriously. Anybody anti-vaccination, hey, I've had whole list of vaccinations. I'm still getting really sick with COVID. And, if you don't do it, I mean, if you don't have your child vaccinated, it just doesn't make sense at all.
Yeah.
So he's gone down that rabbit hole. So it's not just a case of political correctness impeding him. He's gone down a rabbit hole of self-righteousness because he had one little problem, which I never had, which is nobody's overseeing his work. Nobody's actually saying no to him like they said no to me. And he did get the no word once, and that was when he did one on comparing the Israel to Auschwitz, where it had gemacht free or whatever the thing is, work will make you free, over the sign of Israel for the Arabs. And I think, well, that's like, holy cow, that's a bit of a reach. Well, maybe during this Gaza business, maybe not so much of a reach.
I don't think you would have got away with that.
Wouldn't have seen the light of day. So, at any rate, but unfortunately for Leunig, his editor was Jewish and knocked it back. And Leunig flew into a fury and it was all a big deal and it was all across social media. Oh, Leunig gets cartoon rejected. And I'm like,
yeah, right, mate.
You got a cartoon rejected. Well, what a bummer. I mean, welcome to the real world. I mean, so, and I've seen this with other cartoonists who are also not overseen, like Alan Moyer, and he had one rejected his whole career. And I know David Pope is completely independent. He submits his stuff and they just accept it. They just accept it, no matter what it is.
Yeah.
I prefer to be overseen.
Yeah.
I know that sounds a bit of a contrary thing with all the no's I've heard. I prefer to be overseen by an editor who knows the exact point at which you are upsetting and defaming for no good reason. I only had one or two of those. My first editor was like that.
Yeah.
I remember he was what I would call the superlative editor. He was he had his own biases, very strong ones, but he could put them aside for truth, for balance. He hated Bob Hawke personally. He had a personal altercation when he was the Canberra Times editor, and Bob Hawke had absolutely ripped strips off him in front of a whole bunch of people at a thing, really ticked him off. And this is my editor was an angry little man in the first place, so he didn't like Bob Hawke at all during his tenure. But I did this cartoon on Bob Hawke, and it was on Israel, actually, on Bob Hawke in Israel. And the editor said, no, you can't run that. I said, why not? He said, well, Bob Hawke's an expert on Israel. He's very well established. He's very knowledgeable on Israel. You can't do that because it's not truthful. It's not fair. And I thought, that is a real editor.
Yeah, yeah.
That you can get your own biases, see them clearly, and then and we had a very good editorial writer too, who he was quite a character. He used to sit there in his shorts and puffing on cigarettes like chain smoking while he was writing things against the tobacco lobby. That's a real journo.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a very powerful thing, and I tremendous respect for that.
Just staying on Lunig here. I mean, sure. He was part of the, they called it the Magnificent Seven. So there was Ron Tanberg, John Spooner, Bruce Petty, Peter Nicholson, Arthur Horner, Les Tanner, all of the greatest cartoonists ever assembled, all in the one publication.
Yeah, very historically significant. I'm glad you recited the names. I couldn't remember them all, but
that's the thing.
But yeah, they're all big guys.
All in the one place. Like that would very rarely happen anywhere in the world.
All of them striving for the editorial spot, which must have been pretty hectic.
Well, that probably would have drove them even to greater heights.
Well, that's possible too.
You know,
and let's face it, Lunig wasn't funny every day. I mean, every single one of those characters is very different to every other one.
Yeah.
But of course, they had the money. I mean, Melbourne Age and the Sydney Herald had rivers of gold.
Yeah.
Even in the lean years, they still had a lot of money involved. But unfortunately, they were also very well paid. I remember when I won't go too deeply into pays, but I remember we had a bit of went on strike a few times over the years, all for absolutely justification, absolutely, no questions. We're going on strike. We're all out, blah, 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 right? It was, okay, from our perspective. But I remember we had only two people on J10 plus. They said J1, J2, like had Cadet, joined Cadet 2, then J1, J2, J3, J4, right? Up to J10. And J10 was like the holy grail. If you get to J10, oh my God, I'm going to be rich, 100 grand plus, basically. We're talking like 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And anyway, so we only had two. That was Jeff Corbett and Joanne McCarthy.
Yes.
And Joe McCarthy, cracking journalist, absolutely cracking journalist. She was a marathon runner by habit, and a marathon runner with the whole institutional abuse stories.
Yeah,
8 years she did that. So we had these two J10s. The rest of us were all down in the sort of the more humble zone. And anyway, the union guy from Sydney, crafty beggar, he said, we're talking about J10s all the time in Sydney, J10s. Somebody said, how many J10s are there in Sydney? He said, 40%.
Oh, really?
If we weren't angry before, we were angry then.
just while we're talking about Joanne McCarthy, incredible journalist.
Yep.
Your thoughts on her? Like, she did so much, especially obviously uncovering the whole, Catholic Church cover-up sort of thing.
Yep.
Only a couple of weeks ago, we had John Ewer on, and we spoke about it. I think we got this teed up.
She'd probably be a good subject to interview, I reckon.
And also too, we can't forget the work that like Joanne McCarthy from the Newcastle Herald.
She's.
I mean, she was like and I suppose that says a lot for investigative journalism, which doesn't happen these days because the media industry, the landscape is just going at the rate of knot. And a lot of these people are getting out of the game as well. It just shows that she got a lot of ins, didn't she, in regards to talking to victims. Sometimes a little, maybe a little bit more than maybe the police would have got, or had have got.
Yeah. I had a lot to do with Joanne at that time. I'd retired at this point, and she would occasionally ring me and ask me, about points of law and whatnot. We became very close friends, and I was really worried about her. She was putting her heart and soul into this. and she was sort of almost as if she was absorbing it. But she was tenacious. She was, I mean, she's a brilliant journalist.
Yep.
She's a brilliant writer. It wasn't only that. It was that. What was the high something? The building company up and around the Pecolbin
that's right,
area.
yes.
Yeah. That was brilliant investigative work. But this stood alone, and she forged such an alliance with the really good, hard-working people, Audrey Nash, Peter Gogarty, people like that. She became their rock to a certain extent.
So
Yeah,
I mean-
I could mirror a lot of what he just said.
But I mean, the fact that she was an investigative journalist that really got behind the enemy line, didn't she?
Yep.
To get where she, because even with bringing that, how she stumbled upon that, she had. I think the editor said you got to go and do a story on why Catholic schools there hasn't been as many kids being put into Catholic schools of late. So she made a couple of phone calls and then stumbled upon the fact that, it's probably because there's pedophile priests involved. And all of a sudden it just sparked this whole thing, which obviously won her awards and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I mean, around the office, I mean, how was she revered?
We didn't see her much. We did later on, but she was working on Central Coast originally, and I think she was doing she was mailing a lot of stuff in. I remember when she first turned up, I thought, she's pretty scary. She had this sort of, Dominus Rex sort of thing about her, like, no nonsense sort of thing. But I actually realised later that she was actually very easy to talk to, and she was really lovely.
Yeah.
But she's incredibly smart and very determined. I mean, even in marathoning, she did all these runs that were like the sort of ones that would kill a normal person. Certainly I would. You want to just turn your head a little bit that way? Just that's a ticket. Yeah.
I mean, just in regards to, I suppose, staying with editors and stuff like that, a cartoonist, I mean, you guys, did you have a license to mock or like a permit for mischief?
Well, we're the court jesters of the modern era. Head that way a little bit. Thanks. But these days, the executioners are lawyers and the actors are writs. But we do have license, but we've only got as much license as the editor gives you. Now I got no license. I got complete open now because I'm not working for the Herald anymore. I can say anything I like. Only one little problem. I have to cover my own defamation costs and my own defamation legal costs.
Yep.
Because I've been invited a few times to make political comments about whoever or whatever. And I'm thinking, and I say right back to them, I say, okay, do you want to cover any legal things? Are you absolutely certain on that? I mean, because we're talking lose your house sort of thing, if any legal action. If I'd had to carry that thing from Jeff, and that only went on for a little while, I would have had to take out a second mortgage.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember, I'll just jump from there just for a second. Another important story is the best part about a newspaper is righting wrongs, is we are the final source of justice. We're the fourth estate. If the judiciary failed you, if the police failed you, if the political Australia, there's the journalists, there's newspapers, news media. We are the last recourse for justice. We're also a great way to jump a queue. I remember with hospital waiting lists, you're stuck about 6 months down on your hip replacement. Oh, just go up to the newspaper and say, my hip needs replacement. Man, you're going to go straight to the front of the queue if it gets in the paper.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, we're a very important part, and it holds down corruption. Now, that preamble is basically because I remember several occasions when some people were being very naughty, but they couldn't be they couldn't be reined in by any of the three other parts of the system. But then I remember there was this guy. He was a fake naturopath, and he used to charged cancer sufferers $20,000 for his cures. Right, complete fraud. He'd been convicted of fraud before, and we chased him. I remember Greg Ray, whenever he was absolutely one of our gun reporters, and Greg was hang on. He was like a Rottweiler. He'd just hang on, and it was he chased that guy for years. It cost us a lot of money because he took us to court. got himself a QC. The guy who used to on Media Watch of all people, and so we had this full QC in court suing us for defamation, and it cost us a lot of money. We beat him, so he declared bankruptcy, so he didn't have to pay the penalties or anything. So walked away, and then he went down to the Blue Mountains and started doing it again. So without us, he would have just kept on charging cancer sufferers $20,000 a pop, and we even found boxes of pill blanks outside his office.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the sort of people that free media is designed to sort out. That's one of the reasons why corruption spreads like a cancer in societies where media is controlled, like China. Now, Xi Jinping has brought in all this anti-corruption stuff. He wouldn't have to if his media was genuinely free, but then the Communist Party would never get a day off because there's so much petty corruption, favoritism. So that's the reason why countries that have a completely free media, or comparatively free media, there's less corruption because you have guys like even me as a cartoonist.
Yeah.
I had license that the journalists didn't have. I could take it out that little bit extra if I had an editor who'd let me. And so that's a very important. Talking about Joan McCarthy, Donna Page is I think, pretty close, very close to that level. She's an extremely good journo.
Yeah.
And other people, Ian Kirkwood, who's now retired. I knew some really cracking journalists, and I used to go to them when they were working on a topic, and if I was given that topic, and I'd go to them directly in the office, hopefully if they were there, and speak to them directly about the topic and discuss sketches and stuff. And that really gave me an extra edge. And of course, they're gone.
I was going to ask that, whether you bounce things off the actual journalists or whether you just did it off your
Well, you do as much as possible. You do it, try to go in your head. One thing I dreaded was when editors say, "I got this great idea," and I go, I bloody hope it is. Because it isn't. I'm going to have to tell you, it's like it's one of those does my ass look big in this dress sort of questions. And you think, oh well, Mr. Editor, how do I put this?
But just staying on the litigation being sued. I also know that the Daily Telegraph. I mean, they got burnt with the Geoffrey Rush thing. The King Lear.
Lear, as in L-E-E-R.
But they wrote it.
That was such a good case in point. That's what I really disliked the Murdoch Empire for, is character assassination. They didn't care who they destroyed, and they would always go front page. I remember Gordon Piper from Country Practice years ago.
Yep.
Front page, full page, accusation of sexual abuse, right? Full page. He was absolutely cooked from that moment on. Now, I have a thing, I call it the avalanche theory. It's just a personal theory, and a lot of people disagree with me, but abusers don't usually just abuse once. I know that's a simplification. I know that, there's full of exceptions, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I know that. But generally speaking, I wait for the other ones to pile on. There were none. And Gordon Piper, the judge just threw it out of court. It was clearly a case of somebody who had some personal grievance with him, made the accusation. It was completely thrown out, utterly without any foundation, right? That news piece went about page 6 or 7.
Yep.
He was dead in the water.
Yeah. But I do know when I was working for the News Limited on a special piece regarding sexual abuse with women's football, I said, "How do you want me to write it?" They said, "Just write the lights out of it. Just write everything. Put everything in there. It goes to the lawyers upstairs, and they'll put the red pen through, and they will. But there's some things that might get through the net." And I said, "Oh, well, what? But everything I'm writing is fact, And they said, Geoffrey Rush case. They brought it up. They said it's been a whole different landscape since the Geoffrey Rush decision. So even as mighty as News Limited is, they've had to reel it back in some of the stuff.
So they did respond to that.
Absolutely,
because Rip's got big pockets.
I just
think I just had the impression they just wrote it off. I was like, whatever, just cut.
No, it made a massive mark.
Really,
even the point when I was doing work up here for News Limited in the local paper up here. The same thing was touted in regards to we actually have it's part of the rules, and it's called the Geoffrey Rush.
Good. I had no idea.
In regards to whatever you're going to write,
Yeah.
Just if you think it could be some problem, make the phone call. It goes to the lawyer. So it did spook them.
Okay, that's very interesting. I thought that, I think Rupert's generally, his empire's so big and scary.
Well, that's what I thought.
It didn't matter.
Yeah, no, I thought that too. Just in regards to, I suppose, animated memes. I mean, these days, I suppose they're the modern day editorial cartoonists now, aren't they?
Yeah, well, that's right. I mean,
Something like that.
some people actually move into that. The trouble is that it's sort of like being indie film sort of approach to everything, in that you're not really earning much money out of them. But what the internet has shown is just how funny some people are out there, how many people are really funny. I mean, there's some hilarious stuff. All part of doom scrolling, of course, next one, dopamine hit. But there's some really great stuff. But apparently the powers that be within the law industry are now making a rich harvest out of social media, not out of newspapers anymore. The good thing about suing a news media is they're rich. Well, they used to be. They got money. The Murdoch Empire had money. That's why lawyers would have gone, oh, yes, we got this one.
Yeah.
But when you're suing a little person for defaming you on social media, which apparently happens a lot, a lot, and a relative of mine, I say, can you please stop saying that about such and such, because I think that's going to get you in a lot of trouble. You might lose that nice house you've got in your retirement years.
Yeah.
So, it's a lot of... That's the only thing they can do. If somebody sues you for defamation, the most they can do is get your house off you, which might not even cover the legal costs and won't cover penalties.
Yeah.
So, and you don't always win.
Do you feel like too many people are offended these days by everything, and that makes it hard for anyone that wants to, even comedians, even you get up, you've got to, I suppose, unless you're like a Ricky Gervais or a Chappelle, you can get up there and just say whatever they want. And it's almost like people know exactly what they're in for.
Well, even Chappelle's probably a good example of actually, you can't say everything you want to say. There have been big consequences for Chappelle.
Yeah.
Big consequences.
But in a way, it's actually those consequences has made him even bigger coming out the other side.
Within his fan base,
yeah.
It's sort of diminished his broader appeal, but his fan base has become more concentrated. A bit like Trump in a way. I mean, the concentration of the fan base it becomes more intense, but everybody outside that fan base hates you.
Yeah.
So that's the price. A little trick. I know it sounds like a bit of a divergent here. I spend too much time thinking while I'm drawing, so you're getting all this stuff that I think about. But years ago, when I became a free agent again, I went after my first marriage ended, and I saw that. And of course, as soon as you start looking online or internet dating, then people, you get an advertorial. I think one guy had how to date women or something like that. I thought, all right. And I looked at this little sample article. I thought, that sounds really interesting, really, really interesting. So I actually just put it on myself on his little database for a month or two. It didn't cost much. And this guy was just another guy. He wasn't a psychiatrist or a psychologist. He was just a guy, but he came up with all this stuff. But one of the ones that was most interesting is it occurred to me years later when Trump came along. And this is a trick, right? Not a trick, exactly. This is one of the things. If you want to find Miss Right now, right, as a guy, he said, and you go into a room full of people, a room full of women, right? Be your ugliest self. Be yourself. Don't hide anything, right? And if you're an obnoxious person, straight away, at least 50% of the women are go, ugh, yuck. But then you're not going to be wasting your time chasing them, right? He said that you'll have this sort of 50%, and then you continue to be your full self, whatever that is, and you'll go boop, 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 and you'll be down to one or two women, and then you're probably going to get pretty lucky with that last one or two, right?
Is that how you approached your next wife?
No. I'm the antithesis of Trump. And when I read that, I thought, there's no way in the world I could do that.
Yeah.
Because it just breaches my whole internal ethical structure. But Trump has done that. Like he's completely, blatantly obnoxious. But then he's not little anymore. It's about 40 million people going, oh yeah, he's my guy. Oh yeah, hey, right. So it's like,
well, you get back to good marketing on who to market it.
Exactly. And all publicity is good publicity as long as you can take the hits. And he's such a contradiction because he seems so strangely sensitive to criticism, and yet he has created this almost enormous machine of it. Like the time, Every day you must get up with what am I going to do today to keep on the 24/7 news cycle. Now, news 20 years ago wouldn't have worked for this because it was all through newspapers, everything was leavened and but now it's sort of everything depends on this continuous doom scrolling news system. Which is incredibly, as I said, like an autistic sort of thing. All the information is just unleavened, and it's like chaff and wheat are all together. And it's like, imagine bread made from this, where they don't take the chaff out. Yeah. Imagine eating be like, oh God, this is tough. Well, that's what we're doing every day. We got our phone. We're going, oh, this is really tough going. It's like nothing's been sorted and leavened into the nicest stuff. Yeah. We're getting all this trash, and it's really cooking our heads And to be honest, I'd seen it all before because when I first started working for the newspaper back in '86, you only read, the occasional news item, blah, 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 but then you're getting it full on every single day and it was overwhelming because most news is basically bad news. My mind was sort of choked, and that was another thing I get used to. It's like, I feel like, oh, good thing I don't own a gun.
This isn't just a gym, it's where limits get broken. A place where community comes together, sweat turns into strength, and every drop is progress. No excuses, no egos, just results. Join Fitstop Newcastle today, a start to a better you. At times, was there did you ever miss the mark, and also with the editor?
Oh yeah.
And come home and go, or the next day and went,
do I ever? I did that with our Prime Minister.
Right.
This was I was so used to this particular editor. He was a bit of a Dr. No. He was a great guy, but he, you rely on when you have an idea that's a bit like not quite right, but you think, oh, it's not going to reject it. I took the sketch to him and he approved it. I thought I was a bit surprised. Oh, it must work after all. Well, bloody didn't. But it also had a really bad influence. It was over the Australian swimming team not doing well in London. So we're talking 2012. And just to show that fate is ready and waiting for you at every misstep, I get to work the next day, right, knowing that the cartoon hadn't worked. There's all these complaints, right? I knew it. I knew it was a dud. I was thinking, because it was misconceived as being unfair and mean and whatever, right? And then I get to work, and there were these limousines outside the Herald. And I don't know. I'm not very good at paying attention. I'm always in there rather than out there. And so I went up to the office, and I went out in the kitchen. I made myself a coffee, walked out of the office, and there's Julia Gillard, Prime Minister, bang, right in front of me.
Wow.
No time to sort of prep, think of something funny to say, have some cartoons of her ready, nothing. And then she was introduced to her. I was introduced to her as the political cartoonist, and she immediately showed great interest. And everybody around us is watching. And I'm like, hard to believe that I could be lost for words, but yes, I can. And then she started talking about the way cartoonists draw our nose. Now, like a goose, I went down that road. Now you can talk about how a bloke looks, but talking about how a woman looks is not a good look. Right? It's not. You don't go down. You don't go there.
Especially the nose area.
That's right. Well, and she was really good, and she was lovely. She was really, really charming and friendly and funny. And so we got me strolling down this path and everybody started laughing at me rather than with me, right? So, but then it gets worse. Somebody said to her, because that was back when we actually had a full newsroom. Yeah. Somebody said, show her your cartoon today. And I went, oh, God, no. Please, dear God, no. And so somebody insisted on showing her the bloody cartoon, and you could see her face fall. And I thought, it doesn't get any lower than this, I tell you. Bloody Prime Minister here on the worst cartoon you've done in years, and here we are. And I thought, yeah, that'd be all right. Yeah, fate had other plans for me today.
She quickly went to the sports department after that.
Well, yeah, it was all very brushed over and everything, but then I noticed the next day she made some really strong thing about supporting our swimming team and being blah, 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 which was obviously motivated by this perception. Yeah. I thought, well, some good came from it, but it wasn't for me.
There you go. Was there things out of bounds like, I suppose, religion? I mean, you look at in 2015 in France, 12 people shot dead in the
the Charlie
Charlie
Hebdo
Hebdo, yeah.
officers. I mean, was something like that like out of bounds for you in regards to religion?
Well, anything to do with Islam. And absolutely anything. I did a cartoon where I had this big sword cutting through a pen on a cartoonist board, right? Boom. And the editor wouldn't run it. So I put it online and everybody loved it.
Yeah.
But that was just a huge no-go.
Yeah.
And, I mean, Charlie Hebdo was just playing with fire. I thought they were idiots, actually.
Well, I mean, there was
They were idiots.
leading up to that. It's not like they didn't know something like this could have happened. Like was coming.
Like with Holland and in 2006 with the Muhammad cartoons.
Yes.
That's when I did that other cartoon of the sword and the pen.
Yeah.
And I tell you, when you come into work one day and you start looking at the news feed coming in, you realise that 1.3 billion people hate your profession. It's sort of like, I think, I'm so glad I wasn't in Denmark.
Yeah.
And the thing is that when this newspaper did this thing, it was about freedom of press, because the Islamic community were getting very angry about it, blah blah blah, but in Denmark they had completely free media, right? Religion doesn't tell people what to do in Denmark. They were completely naive.
Yeah.
But it sort of went away. But then those mullahs in Denmark went back to the Middle East and complained about their treatment.
Yep.
And off it went. And of course, they were still really ticked off because of America going into the Middle East. All this Christian armies going into these Islamic countries. It's like the Crusades Mark II. And Bali bombings.
Yeah.
It's all pretty horrendous.
Yeah.
And when it comes to, I could joke about Islamic things years before. I remember when it was less hot and when we weren't actually going in there and being a pain in the neck. I remember when the Ayatollah Cainey died, and apparently his followers were so passionate they actually grabbed at his body and he fell off the plinth. And so I had the Ayatollah in a souvenir shop with the pots and things and this and this guy saying he fell off the back of the truck. So you could do it then. But you couldn't do it now. Sure. It's a no-go zone.
Did you show that at that Newcastle Business Club that day? The one that
No, that one got approved because it was like 20 or 30 years before. It was like I had more freedom with that first editor and with editor number 5, I think. Who I remember. In fact, I won an award for a cartoon on 9/11. A national award on 9/11 because I had this particular editor who never said no.
Yeah.
Took me about 3 months to get to know this guy to realise that he wasn't saying no to anything. So for 2 years of this guy's tenure, completely open limits.
Yep.
I remember we only had one complaint, and that was when I was doing cartoons on Israel with Sharon, and he was with the settlements and everything. And I had this thing from a guy claiming he was the Israeli consul for Sydney, saying that I was anti-Semitic. And the editor just sort of walked up to my desk and said, I've got this letter here. Yeah, what do you want? Yeah, here you go. And I just read it, and that was it.
Yeah.
He never said no to anything. And it's like, so, and I never had a single complaint other than that one.
Now, leading up to today, I said, I want you to send me a few of your best, from the Herald. And I got about 30 of them. I'm like, oh my God, which ones to go with, for today? But I sort of went with the ones that are sort of synonymous with Newcastle. The first up, it was the BHP closure, which I thought was brilliant. I think it was, in case of unprofitability, pull the plug.
The funny thing about the BHP cartoons, I was doing that for so long. I don't know if my little BHP man was in one of the cartoons I sent you. But I remember Cook, what's his name? Bob Cook? Is it Bob Cook? Anyway, you'll be cranky with me, I'm forgetting his name. But anyway, he was the PR rep for Newcastle. He wanted to become Newcastle councillor. Anyway, so he was the BHP rep for Newcastle. And during all this business with the closure had been announced, whatever, and he rang me up and he said, BHP would really like those cartoon originals for display. Yeah. I said, serious? He said, yeah. He said, well, we can take, BHP can take it. They've never sued anybody for, defamation. He said, they can take it. He said, I'm really, he said, so we'll pay for them. I said, how many you got? And I sort of got back to him 10 minutes later. I said, 60.
Really? Wow.
60. So I was just selling you a couple of the.
Yeah. I mean, it was at that time. I mean, it was a real doomsday, wasn't it, for Newcastle? Everyone thought that was the end because everyone knew someone that worked at the BHP. Yeah. It was almost like, what are we going to do now? And obviously, it wasn't the end of the world. Yeah. I know the story. When I came back to Newcastle, I met an older lady. She because I went back to carpet laying. People already probably know this. I was a carpet layer, became a journalist for 12 years, and back to carpet laying. One of the first few weeks I was back laying carpet. Went to a house at Elibarna. It was a beautiful big house, and you could tell this lady had a lot of wealth. Anyway, there was pictures of her and her husband, and I said, and she said, my husband's at work today. And I went, he's at work? She said, yes. And I said, geez, he'd be like in his 80s now. He looks mid-80s. She said, yeah, he's 86. I said, he still works. I said, what does he do? She said, well, he used to work at BHP all his life. And when the BHP closed down, where everybody was going, oh, my God, what are we going to do? He had the foresight to say, well, to know that we're still going to need to make steel. So he got out a loan, started buying some of the equipment from BHP and started making his own sheds. He said now he's got 12 sheds all over Australia, and he just goes around, visits each shed. He knows every employee's name, first name. But that was the sort of story of everyone was looking at doom and gloom. This guy actually looked at it and say, this is an opportunity. And he re-employed some of his old mates from BHP. It's just such a great story that you'd love to do a story on that, but guess what? We're in court doing court stories. But there's so many good news stories that spawned out of the BHP.
Well, BHP also did the right thing by us. Mind you, the American boss of BHP just couldn't get his head around all these redundancies. You're giving these people what? How much? Really? Because Australian law, see, my American cartoonist mate, he got like 3 months' pay after years of work, blah, blah, blah. Whereas Australia, we have quite strict laws. Thank you to the unions, despite what Rupert's been trying to do. So I had like equivalent of 2.5 years' pay. Yeah. And that's a very Australian thing.
Absolutely.
And they did that with the BHP guys. So a lot of guys came out of there with seed money to do other things like that guy. And they were still hardworking. They were still... And truth be told, there were a lot of contractors were shown the door who didn't get anything. There were as many contractors as there were. I think it was 5,000 workers and 5,000 contractors, something like that. But what came along, of course, was the coal industry. I mean, these huge machines and whatever. I mean, there's 130 million tonnes of coal leaving, 150 million tonnes of coal leaving Newcastle every year. That sort of got us out of a pickle, whether you like it or not. But it gave me a lot of cartoons as well. I still remember doing one cartoon where I had Newcastle as like a tobacco shop. With all the health warnings on every single packet, and the guys there said, "Really?" He said, "I don't know whether to feel guilty about happy about my success or guilty about it."
Next, we got the Pasha Bolka.
Yep.
Obviously, another time that most obviously remember. Did you go on site and did you look at that and go, well, you couldn't sketch or?
Oh, obviously photographs, but it affected me. I mean, I drove home back then. I was divorced and I had 3 kids, and the kids lived with me, and so they're still young. So teenagers, but young teenagers. And so what I'd do is I'd work till about 5 o'clock, then I'd go home, have tea with them, and then go back to work. Right, that was my habit. And so I was driving home in this incredible amount of rain, and the roads are starting to flood, and I got home. And then I had dinner with them, and then I was heading back, and it was just like a sea. Now, my one regret is that I didn't keep going and destroy my car because I half destroyed it. I damaged the car with the electricals and everything, but didn't realise. I thought it was just being a pain. It was nearly a new car. Now, I could have got a full payout on that beast, and instead I had this half-dead machine, which I ended up flogging off as the trade. So that was my one regret. But the other thing is I turned around and I went back, and I still remember that because it was like the world, it really was apocalyptic. And so I wanted to share my kids' fate because I had no idea what was going on. It was just an ocean, an inland ocean. And so I went home and hung out with the kids, and then the rain receded, and then whatever. And we had 500 dead cars all over Newcastle, and it was absolutely amazing. But Newcastle's, I once did an article on Newcastle being a praying magnet. I wrote a column for the paper, and I even did a cartoon. I had this little red car during that time, and everybody ran into that beggar. I mean, I even got run at the back of in a McDonald's drive-through. So it was a punching bag, man. I never caused any of the accidents. It just got like bang. I remember one time I was sitting there doing an art class and it bang. I thought, oh, I got it. Bet it's mine. Sure enough, somebody had come off and lost their car and ploughed into it.
Yeah.
So I reckon Newcastle like that. We've had a killer earthquake, a flood, a biblical flood, boats on the beach. I tell you, if a meteor ever hit Earth, Newcastle.
But when you saw that Pasha Bolka, it's almost like even to this day, people overseas that see pictures of it, they go, "That's Photoshop."
Yeah, it does look Photoshop.
There's no way that could. It was quite incredible. And then there was the thought process of everyone in Newcastle go, "Oh, it's never going to leave. Let's turn it into a restaurant. Let's turn it into a cafe. It's going to be a tourist attraction."
Yep.
They put Neil Slater put his restaurant on the top instead of Nobby's.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it was ours.
It's stuff like that. I mean, it's just...
It's fantastic, isn't it? But being I was very lucky because, unlucky, but lucky because if you want to be in a medium-sized newspaper, small, medium newspaper, Newcastle is the place. Because like the praying magnet, there's always something is going to happen, It's just, I don't know why. So there's always incredible news that comes out of Little Newcastle about the Royal Commission Institutional Abuse. That came from us, from Little Newcastle Herald.
Yep.
Joanne McCarthy, no, in fact, Gillard's last action as Prime Minister, the very last thing she did after was to write a personal letter to Joanne McCarthy, thanking her for her work. I mean, if you want to be a cartoonist in a small newspaper, Newcastle Herald, boom.
Absolutely. Another one that made it. Yeah, look at, there you go.
I had a bit of freedom to manoeuvre on that because, well, we were doing so much you could actually criticise religion in this case.
Yeah.
Normally you'd be hands off.
Exactly.
But basically they made such a mess of things that I was given open season.
Yeah.
Still within some limits. I remember the first one I did, though, was years before all this started, nearly 20 years before. And I had this particular editor who was very religious. He was quite, quite the conservative. But then this thing came up with the sexual abuser up there at Maitland, whose name I can't remember now after all these years. And I did a cartoon on it, which was a really dark cartoon. And I took the sketch to him, thinking it'd be passed, and I think it'd be rejected. And he passed it. I couldn't believe it. Then I remembered, he's Baptist.
Right. Just depends which religion.
That's right.
Depends which
got through that
religion you're pissing off.
That's right. Exactly.
The fig trees, another.
The fig trees.
Wasn't that a
24 cartoons I did on that one.
I was going to say
some of my best stuff. I reckon
we've got two of them. Here's one. There's been a stay of execution while they decide if you're hardened killers.
That's right. I had a field day. There was just like. It was gold, just rivers of gold for me. I mean, it was just. My favourite one, I think you might have the other one. I'm not sure of the. That one. That's my personal favourite.
No,
the Layman Street trees.
The red one
500,000 times more dangerous according to a survey or something like that, which was ridiculous. And that was when that Locker, the American film came out with the bomb disposal guy. There was the sort of populist reference.
I mean, they were 80 years old. They were top heavy. Council were, obviously worried about instability.
And they cost wrecking the pipes and wires.
Cost nearly $1 million all up. But geez, it got bloody serious. People chained themselves to trees.
My own wife at the time, so she was really hot about this. The Layman Street trees. I said, it was all over when the lawyers said we refuse. Well, sorry, when the lawyers referred to it as too dangerous, and the insurance company said we can't insure it without legal.
Yeah,
it was over.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just over.
Yeah.
I mean, there was no point arguing about it.
Well, the
rest was just noise.
You look at those streets back from Derby Street back; they've got all those tree problems because there's trees being grown out of the road.
Yep.
They're going to have multitude of problems as years go by. I mean, that was just the start of it to sort of say, well, look what's happening already here.
Yeah.
I suppose everywhere where there's a branch hanging over someone's head when they walk, on a footpath, there's always going to be. A time for litigation, down the track.
The The law calls it well, look, for example, with all these characters, like, have you had an injury? Injury lawyers, coffin chasers. Yeah. That's an American thing, and when it came here, they actually had to change the law to stop what was becoming a free-for-all, which was just destroying the insurance industry and wrecking all our insurance payments. One of the reasons why your doctors cost so much is the huge amount of legal litigation that they have to deal with. Yeah. You only got to get one patient wrong, which is like sort of pretty easy to do, and you're going to have a coffin chaser after you, and you're talking about significant amount. Their insurance must be catastrophic.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's just part of the deal now. It's like, well, newspapers have legal. Actually, Fairfax covered its own legal costs. They didn't insure, because they had their own legal team with the greatest legal minds of our age, sort of thing, and they just took their own chances. And every now and then they'd be blown up. Shortly after I got that lecture from that lawyer I was telling you about earlier, they lost a court case with a developer, and the developer was defamed by a little comment piece this big in a social column. Mm. It cost Fairfax legal costs of $200,000. This is 30 years ago.
Yeah,
$200,000 legal costs plus the legal costs of the other guy, and the penalty the judge put in was $1.3 million. So Fairfax appealed it, lost the appeal, and the judge added another $1.3 million. Mm. Ooh, ouch, ooh, ooh.
Another a team that's synonymous, obviously, with Newcastle. It's in everyone's DNA is the Newcastle Knights. Well, most people anyway.
Yeah, I've done a few on them over the years.
I bet this is what I like about this one is that we got it there.
It's in there somewhere.
Just the fact that we're struggling at the moment, and we got it.
No. Oh, there we go.
Here we go.
Yep.
Now,
I don't actually remember that one.
What I like about
Obviously,
this,
I did it.
What I like about this is that this was 10 years ago, and nearly to the month. So this is when
I think you must have got that one because that wasn't one of those.
No, it wasn't. Yeah, I got this one, but it's Rick Stone when he was going bad as a coach. It's almost like history has repeated itself. We've got a current coach called O'Brien. You could practically just change the coaches, the coach to O'Brien, and you could republish that one.
Yep. Well, the Knights are sort of such a big part of Newcastle. I remember when they first started. In fact, my Knights cartoon was actually the punchline that was actually dreamed up by the editor. It was actually not a bad thing. It was like the sports editor came out. What was it? No, I can't remember it too long, but it was when the Knights first started, and it was some little snide comment, the sports editor, and he's laughing at his own joke, and I thought, here we go. Funny joke coming, inbound, shields up. But I thought, actually, that's pretty good. But generally speaking, I always tried to make it my own comment. It was called Lewis's View for a reason. Sport's a very important part. I was actually out, not in a Knights game, but I was actually hired by the Knights to be out there to do portraits of people outside the stadium in the lead up. Every now and then they'll get me to come along and do that, and just meet people in Newcastle. This is what we're made of. It's a big deal.
In regards to just getting back, I suppose, with the council, are they the gift that just kept on giving?
In the early days, they were for me because the newspaper used to go to bed at 11.
Yeah.
Now it goes to bed at 7. So back when I was doing it, I used to start work at 2 and then go to tea time, go home for tea and then come back and then finish the shift. And because the council meetings were in the evenings. So the local government reporter would ring back to the paper saying what she was working on, and she would usually do it from her computer or whatever. And so I'd actually then have a lead thing about 6 or 7 o'clock and know what it was about. And so I got to know nearly all of them personally, and they loved it. The council just loved it. I even used to have little things in there, like Margaret Gumas always had. She had little bows on her suitcase, so I always had it covered in bows, like little white bows and things like that. And there was Frank Rigby. He apparently was wearing his son's leather motorcycle jacket. He really liked it, so he used to wear it to council meetings. So as soon as I started having like a bikies jacket with chains and a skull and all sorts of stuff. And funnily enough, it must have stung him a bit because he stopped wearing it then. And I still remember when Margaret Gumas, she and her husband Theo ran was it Spotlight Cinema or something like that, and Kensington. And I remember one time there was this thing about they were all brawling about something years ago. This is we're going right back to the 80s, and they were having this huge Barney at the time. I think it was back in the Geddes era.
Yep.
And so they're having this huge brawl, and that was when McEnroe was breaking tennis rackets and screaming at everybody. So I did them as a tennis match, right? And I gave them all something to do, and I couldn't figure out what to do with Margaret. So I just had her sitting on the ground with a broken tennis racket, eating one of the tennis balls. So Theo, her husband, they had a film thing on, like some sort of big film show on that weekend with all the film people coming in at the Kensington, I think it was. And so Theo got a big copy of it and stuck it up on the wall, and she was embarrassed as hell, and she even rang up the paper to find out why I'd had her eating a tennis ball. And Geddes, of course, jumped on and said, "Oh, just like Margaret eating somebody's balls." He did that in the actual next meeting. And so they loved it. They loved having that reaction. I remember on one occasion I actually went down there because some big thing going on about poor old, not related to me, so Tom Lewis or something, I think. He was the town clerk.
Barry Lewis.
Barry Lewis.
I used to
Very
live
good.
next door. I grew up living next door to Barry Lewis.
Oh, you're up in Garden Suburb, were you?
No, Adamstown. No, this is before they went to Garden Suburb.
right,
we lived at Adamstown Heights. We lived in Garden.
What a small world we live in.
Unbelievable.
What a
But you know what? If you wanted something done,
Yeah. Well, Barry,
it's a knock on these doors.
see, Barry was like cost them practically nothing as a town clerk. When they went to a general manager later, it cost them a fortune.
But that's the thing. He really had a bit of swagger, didn't
That's
he?
right.
You know,
He was very effective.
Yeah.
And he was well respected, but he asked for a pay rise, which is sort of ironic because he was earning bugger all in comparison to what the general manager later on got.
Yeah.
But then McNaughton had agreed to a pay rise, but he had to go to council. And anyway, it had some big argument over it. So I actually went down to the council for the argument. So I'd get a bit of a heads up and see what was going on. So I did a couple of cartoons, and then poor old Barry got his bonus rejected. So I had McNaughton with this collection plate. It's only got one little coin on it, and I had McNaughton saying, "The Lord Mayor giveth, and the Lord Mayor taketh away." So with the councils then, I was more interactive, but that sort of ended years later.
Yeah.
So and I was actually on holidays when McCloy got the flick. When he got into all that trouble,
Yeah.
which may be one of the reasons why you're still talking to me at the end, because he got himself real trouble. And interestingly, on that point of the whole bag of money thing, that actually came from the whole problem started with his birthday, because for fun, his staff gave him a cake shaped like a bag of money.
That's right.
Well, nobody really knew much about that whole thing until then, and then it all went boom.
Yeah.
In actual fact, I think it was a check, as he pointed out to me years later.
Yeah.
So it was all very interesting.
Yeah, I've got to say a bit of a disclaimer here too. I love Barry. Barry Lewis the best was when he used to go on holidays. I used to jump the fence and swim in his pool while he was away.
Oh, it's all coming out now.
Yeah, you've got me.
I actually got in trouble during that era because Lake Macquarie's mayor had a bit of a mental break. I won't mention his name, but he's quite well known, and it was very embarrassing for the council. And the editor told me not to touch that one,
Right.
but I sort of did because it was just too big to ignore. And I got in trouble for that. I got the stern look of disapproval for that.
You didn't put a straitjacket on him, did you?
No, I didn't use a straight. No mental health comments, but it was sort of very awkward. It was when he ran off to Fiji, I think.
Yes,
you remember that?
I certainly
we
do
shall
remember that.
remain nameless. It was
was,
it was all a bit ooh.
I know Talkback Radio really went to town on that.
I felt sorry for him.
Jeff J really gave it to him.
He should never have been mayor because he obviously had some problems. Mm-hmm. And of course, the problem is one of the issues is if you've got a mental health issue, including as a cartoonist. It's a good idea not to have too much pressure placed on you. And I tell you, when I was being sued, I could feel the timbers creaking and the nails wanting to pop out of the boards with me. I bet.
Yeah. Something a little bit different now, totally different.
Yep.
You've got an exhibition happening at the Newcastle Museum in September.
Well, it's not. I'm in an exhibition.
In an exhibition, not yet, but this is part of the exhibition. This is extraordinary. It's like something I've never seen before. This is just the animated pictures of it. A mechanical fish tank.
Yep, mechanical fish tank.
Now, I think we've got the video of it here too. What?
It's not. Yeah, these are the stills. these are the stills, and there's a video, a couple of videos. I don't know which one to use. I actually I had to eliminate all the background. I used Photoshop to eliminate the background.
So did
my
you-
garage is a nightmare of tools and bits and pieces.
Did it start from you drawing something like this and then making it, or
No, it all started with my dentist over there in Islington. He had a big fish tank. Oh,
Here
there
we
we
go,
go.
here we
Yes,
go.
here it is.
this is extraordinary?
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
It's a labour of love. It's sort of become not much love for here and there. It's been a very stressful project because I don't have a trade background. So this is all handmade, you're seeing here. And so it started, my dentist had a big fish tank, tropical fish, but they kept dying because tropical fish are really weak. That's the thing that drives it. I bought the bogies, but the rest is mine.
You love your trains, don't you?
Well, sort of. I joined a G-scale train group when this is the second build. The first build was destroyed.
Yeah, we'll get to
We'll
that.
get to the famous tree incident. So a year later, I actually designed and built all the bodies of the train.
Yeah.
So this is all done in on 3D design using an engineering program. So I had to teach myself that. That was a bit of a chore. But then the train started to misbehave recently, and I think I couldn't figure out what the problem was. Anyway, fortunately, good news. A few days ago, I finally found out what the problem was. I kept on doing everything to. A friend of mine who knows all about Raleigh said, get a cotton bud, dip it in oil. So this is a fish I finished a couple of months ago.
Wow.
And to get a cotton bud, put some oil on it, and run it around the insides of the railway line, just the inside.
So obviously the train that's going on the top is moving.
These
the
are hanging
fish.
by wires like a puppet show. Yeah,
That's
all lit up.
even
That'll all be lit up
getting
in the show.
even getting it on the right angle without going to like
All the scenery's designed to give the train a gap. All of it strategically designed. I had to pretend that I actually, was an engineer with all this, and it was a nightmare. So anyway, the problem was, so as soon as I did that, the train sort of took off like a rocket because it was friction. The friction of the wheels going where the flanges hit the inside of the rail, and that's all it was. 4 months of hell. I was going mad trying to fix this problem, and it was just a little bit of oil around the inside of the train track.
But when did it first? When did the idea first come in your head for that?
Well, so getting back to the dentist, thanks for reminding me. I got off on a straight path there, as I turned
That's
to
not
do.
like you.
So anyway, my dentist had this huge fish tank. The pump failed one weekend, took out the whole thing, came in a couple of days to get one of my fillings done, and I looked at this dead fish tank, and I thought, geez, I wonder if you made a mechanical fish tank, you wouldn't have a problem with this. Yes, you do. But anyway, so I thought, how would you do that? But it stuck in the back of my head for a couple of years, and I was in a serious art exhibition because I still had them occasionally.
Yeah.
Sold a few things, but it was boring. It was just boring. I thought I need something that's active and playful and funny and friendly.
Yeah.
Not something that's yes, I need more angst. I wanted sort of something that you could interact with. And I thought, well, there's that fish tank. I think I'll build that fish tank. Welcome to hell. But when you haven't got a trade background, I originally had a steampunky thing in my head, but steampunky guys have trade backgrounds. They're welders, fitters, machinists, plumbers, electricians. I'm none of those.
When you told me that you had something that was going into an art exhibition, I'm thinking your drawings first of all,
right.
like most people would think, and then you're saying to me, "Oh, I end up having to get ex-electricians and tradesmen to help me finish it." I'm thinking, what are you talking about? And all of a sudden, this.
I know.
And what makes it even harder?
And worse when you haven't got a budget.
Is that what makes it even harder? We've got a vision of this. Is that did you nearly complete it when this happened? So this is your former house, would it be?
Yes, this is at my previous house.
Yep.
This is going back in 2015 with a huge
Tree
storm.
as an art critic.
Oh, I put that label on. Fortunately, I had a neighbour. He came over and said, "I think a tree's going to hit your house."
So
my studio was in the garage.
So the fish tank's in the garage.
Yeah, fish tank was in the garage.
Right.
Everything was in there. My neighbour came across and said, "I think the tree's going to hit your garage, mate." And I was really ticked off. I couldn't do anything, so I went inside, was finishing my breakfast, and he video recorded it.
I was about to say, what's that creep doing video on you?
You missed the best part there where he said, "Oh, shit." That was great. I love that part. I laugh every time I hear that video. It got 75,000 hits across Australia. Channel 9 picked it up. My relatives in Perth said they saw it.
Was it start from scratch again?
Yep. Beyond scratch. Beyond.
So
because
how many?
I had to wait for the garage to be
long did it-
rebuilt.
How long did it take you up until that tree?
It was the thing was in its previous form was much simpler. It was
Yep.
it wasn't really working all that well. It was sort of a thing that wasn't really going to
So
fly.
the tree was a blessing in disguise. It made you think even harder for the second
I was only
time.
angry for half an hour, and then I thought, I was fully insured. Oh, this could work to my. There might be a rainbow at the end of this thing, and so then I thought, okay. So, and of course, the insurance company, Allianz, funnily enough, who are really playing it tough with some people, and they just said, well, we can't insure the creative aspect. We can insure the material costs. So I thought, yes, you beauty. And so I went again, and I thought, I don't want to build the same thing again because there was a lot of problems. I had a little tiny train dragging it around, and it was sort of doing it. The fish was all like, trying to go around. And then I bumped it once, and the HO gauge train fell off and smashed on the floor, and I thought, I don't think this idea is working very well. So along comes the tree. And so I had to wait a year for the garage to be rebuilt, and et cetera, et cetera. And then I started again. So I'd lost 3 years. But that was like 2016, 2017. So I've been working on it since 2017. But what I did was I joined a G-scale train club where I met all these old guys, me included, who all had this expertise, different areas of expertise and real profound knowledge of all these different areas. One guy was a fabricator, and he said, and I was thinking about rivets because I couldn't weld. He said, well, yeah, and he said, no, well, you're using the wrong type of rivets. He said, you go to an 8th gauge rivet, that'll do it. I said, what? Yeah. There's all this advice.
You should have just went to a men's shed to do all this.
Well, yeah, but then they want you to mow people's lawns. You've got to give too much to take, like you can take from a bunch of old train guys.
And every place you had to mow, they'd go, can you draw me while you're here, Peter?
That's right. Oh, lovey, while you're at it, I've got this. You do get asked to draw. I mean, imagine being a doctor and you say, you're at a party and somebody says, oh, you're a doctor. Oh, I got this water on my backside. So it's a bit like you're a cartoonist. So it's always, all our trades have a sort of an effect.
Yeah.
Like if I meet an electrician, I say, well, I've got this thing I'm having a problem, because I don't have a budget. Mm-hmm. It's all done by me. Ha-ha.
Well,
so
my next thought is, okay, you've got to get that from your garage into Newcastle. Yeah. That's not going to be an easy.
Well, it's actually got wheels underneath and was designed to go through double doors. The original version, this version was designed with wheels underneath. I designed it to have to go through, like I said, go through double doors and to fit into the back of a Pantech. The only problem is that, like me, it's got put on a lot of weight as time has gone by, and so it's a pretty beefy little mega now. When it was solid aluminium, I could pick it up with one hand at each hand. Easy. It wasn't weighed nothing. Yep. You had the plywood, add the blah, blah, blah. So anyway, the museum is sent around their man, lovely guy named Graham, he's a professional retired removalist, and he brought on these two strapping young men, and he's looking at it thinking, But anyway, they went over, they were, this is all right, she's all right, yeah, we got it, we got this. And they'll just pick it up and put it on a pallet and wheel it up the driveway and then stick it in the back of a truck. It could still theoretically fit into a Pantech, but they're bringing a real removalist vehicle and doing the job properly.
And it'll certainly be an eye catcher at the
exhibition.
At the exhibition, I mean,
the exhibition opens on the 27th of September. Mm-hmm. There is a thing on the 25th, but it's just for the exhibitors and families. So it's like, I thought it was actually going to be the opening then and big, but no. If anybody wants to see this, it's on the 27th, and it'll be in their main auditorium area. Yeah. And there's a lot of other really interesting stuff, including artwork by another Peter Lewis. I really should have got a different name.
Is it the New Zealander? I think there's another.
They're always copying everything we do.
That there's another cartoonist in New Zealand, or not a cartoon. Well, he does comic sort of art, and his name's Peter Lewis as well.
Well, it doesn't surprise me.
Yeah,
my parents had no imagination. My family has no imagination. I got a nephew named Peter Lewis. And a cousin named Peter. It was like, oh, come on, think of something different,
What are you going to do with it after it's finished, though?
Oh, dear God, I hope I can flog it off or find another place for it to go. I don't want it back in the garage.
An auction at the end on the last day would be great.
Well, I need about $100,000 at the auction to cover all the hours and material costs.
I mean, doing something like that, it's been a labour of love for obviously those so many years.
Yeah.
Will there be a void? It's almost like,
no.
But what am I going to do next? Or is there something?
No, this was... was nearly going to relate it to a bowel movement you just can't pass. So I won't go down that river, but it's sort of like, oh, thank God that's over now. I can go back to
I can just
to just doing other stuff.
I can just imagine you doing a sketch of at the last day, the Fort Scratchley cannons with these things with this mechanical fish tank getting shot out into the sea past Nobbies.
Well, I mean, I want it to be enjoyed.
Yeah.
You know, one of the reasons why men, I think, have always pursued vigorously the arts and creativity and whatever, and to be honest, I think women have a greater level of talent than men in most creative fields. I mean, that's my honest opinion. I'm not crawling here and being sort of feministic or anything, but like my daughter's a very experienced...
video.
My daughter is a very experienced tattoo artist. Anything I can do on paper, she can do on skin. Right. But males seem to have this, be driven to be creative, and I think it's because we can't create children. These are the children of our minds. This is what happened. Well, this is what happened.
At one point, you wanted to adopt this child.
Well, no, I popped this one out and I wanted to do well. But this one was a very long delivery.
I think there's plenty of doctor surgeries that would love to have this in their waiting room.
Yeah, well,
they would keep kids amused. It would be.
Yeah. On that note, I've got to surround it with glass too. So everybody thinks it's covered in glass, but there's no glass. So
there's no glass.
There's no glass. So and I've been told the museum said it's got to be toughened glass. So well, I'm having a lot of problems with that. And the glass shop are turning up on Monday morning to have a look at it directly because anyway, it's been an epic. So if all else fails, it's Perspex. Mate, I'll do the bloody Perspex. I've Trident Perspex, Trident Plastics are... Yeah, right, okay, that's a fail. It's all right. Fallback position time. Yeah, here we go.
Tired of missing out on the best properties? Stop searching, start winning. At Optimum Buyers Agency, we work for you, not the seller. We negotiate harder, we move faster, we find the homes others don't. Off-market deals, smart strategy, real results. Whether it's your first home or your forever home, we make it happen. Optimum Buyers Agency, your edge in a competitive market. You also, obviously, you go to a lot of events, people hire you to do that sort of stuff.
Yeah, that's right. That's something I'd like to see more of, but I'm not very good at marketing. I'm not very good at marketing myself. Remember, I'm the anti-Trump.
Well, this podcast could market
nice,
that, you know. But is that something you still, after all these years of drawing, I mean, even, God, you're doing mine.
Try to, because you're way over there and smile, I can't smile.
Okay, I'll keep talking like this. Do you get sick of it?
No, I don't get sick of it. You get a bit tired. I mean, in my autumn years, it's sort of, maybe I don't have the reserves, but you know, I can still do hours at a stretch. I mean, I've done up to 8 hours at a stretch doing people's live portraits.
Yeah.
I don't like working from photos. You don't get the feed.
Really?
Okay. Oh no! Basically, it's like you feel like a Xerox.
Yeah.
And I found that if you try and wing it a bit from photo, well, 2D to 2D. Let's say somebody has this whopping great big nose, right? But the photograph's front on.
Yeah.
How am I going to know they've got a big nose?
Yeah.
I don't know. So, and of course, if they send you professional photographs, well, I tell you, nobody's more creative than a professional photographer when it comes to making somebody look good. You don't want them to look good. You want to look real.
Yeah.
To absorb the information.
Yeah.
Because it's a whole field in itself. I've always been fascinated with how we actually do people's faces. Here's my own spin, and I'll try not to use up any more time because we've been going for a while. Inside every person's mind is a template, right? I don't know if it's a perfect template. The template can be altered. Well, let's say if you were raised by a mum and dad who are pretty chunky, you would see a chunky people in a more positive light, right?
Yeah.
But if they're really thin, or if you're surrounded by big nosed people, so your template can be altered. But otherwise, there's a template in your head, and when you meet a person, you put the template over the top of their face without realising it. This is just my own idea. And everything outside of that template is sort of the caricaturization. Let's say if you had really big ears like Tony Abbott, then I would make those ears really big.
Yeah.
Right? Or if your nose was really small, I'd make the nose really small. In comparison to the template in my head. Now, I can't say I'm particularly strong in that area because over the years, I found that people really like to be more nice, play nice, swim between the flags a bit in the newspaper and without of it.
Yeah.
And so I've become a bit more tame, and so it's harder for me to do caricatures now than it used to be.
Yeah.
Also, to a background in fine arts, we're more realistic,
Sure.
So I've seen caricature artists who are really brilliant at the caricatures, but people seem to like the more portraity cartoons.
Yep.
So I'm happy to go down that path.
Because you used to paint as well.
Yeah, I actually won awards in my first time I painted an exhibition. When I was still at art school, I won awards. Yeah, and it got a bit spoilt because then I realised later on it's not quite that easy. But and I've won awards in cartooning. Mostly Rotary Club's been very good. National Rotary Awards. I've won first prize a couple of times with the Rotaries. So it's been good. I can't say I think the public like me more than my contemporaries do, because my contemporary cartoonist mates like us with the Australian Stanley Awards. I haven't done as well with that because they've got their own idea of who's who in the zoo.
Yeah.
But people out there in the Newcastle people seem to like what I do.
Yeah.
And that was good by me.
You've done a couple of self-portraits too.
I had to. Yeah.
Me. I'm going to draw me.
We'll do the one. I think it was one where you were standing in front of it. Where are we? This one here. So that looks nice.
Oh, I'm terrible at drawing myself.
You didn't like that one? Straight in the bin?
Well, I don't even remember it.
Or was it in your lounge room?
It's a long time ago. That'd be 20 years at least.
Yep.
Getting a bit of a paunch there already, I see. Got my suspenders.
I like the next one though. It looks as though.
There
That looks like the Nutty Professor.
Well, I did that on purpose because I'm usually the photographer around in my family. But anyway, it was my birthday, right, last November, and wife took a photograph of me with a cake, and I'm like, full silly face, right? Got the photograph. I thought, oh God, that's a dreadful photo. So anyway, the National Portrait competition, which was, I don't know if that's still going or what happened about that, but they wanted, it's a big thing in England, and you get about a dozen artists, fine artists, and to do portraits, right, of a celebrity, a bit like Ando, that type of thing. Yeah. And so, to enter, you had to do a self-portrait and put it in. Self-portrait. I'm not like Trump. I don't look in the mirror and go, oh my God, you're so beautiful. I look in the mirror and go, oh, you again. And so anyway, I thought, I'm going to do something. So I got the silliest photograph, and I did that as a painting. That's an actual painting, not digital.
Yeah.
And I hadn't done any painting. I actually had to get the paints out of the cupboard, and I did it, legit. And I just did it for fun.
I actually got a portrait done. Dino Consalvo.
Yeah, I went to high school. No, he was not in my year, but Dino.
He did me.
Yeah.
And I tell you what, because that's the thing too. A lot of people, you don't get asked too often. He said, I've got an exhibition. He said, I'd like you to be in it, and I want to paint you. And I went, wow, how long's it going to take? It took about three sittings, or standings. I think there's another one of when he was doing it.
He would have had the same problem I've been having. You're too good looking, mate.
I think, but that was the thing.
Ugly people are much easier.
But what amazed me was that we might not have that. He sold it for $2,800.
Did he really?
Yeah.
To your wife?
I don't know.
Admit it. You bought it. You bought it, didn't you?
It's in someone's shitter somewhere, I'm sure of it. Where they need to go and they can't.
Yeah. Oh, well done.
But isn't it people would come up to you and go, "Wow, Peter Lewis, it's a real thing to get drawn or even painted by you."
Yeah. Well, amazing number of people seem to have been drawn by me. So my oldest daughter only a couple of days ago, because she's been with this really nice guy for about a couple of years, and she sent me this SMS saying, "Oh my God, you've got a connection with my partner. You've actually drawn him and drawn his dad and his mum at their wedding in 2018." I went, and I only just figured it out. And then there was, and you did his auntie back in 2016. It's like, and that every single one of my daughters has got a connection. Like all their spouses have been connected to drawings I've done of either their parents or blah blah blah. It's like, so I've been out there for a while.
I reckon you could set up a store like this at Civic Park or on the corner of Hunter Street, and people would be just going, you'd make a couple of grand a day easy.
It's not that simple. Not that simple. I've done markets.
I'm an ideas man.
I've done markets. Yeah, it's patchy.
Yeah.
Because if they see you working, you can get them in.
Yeah.
But if the thread breaks and you're just sitting there, so you have to start doing freebies
Right.
and to get the ball rolling again.
Yeah.
And it's really patchy and it's sort of like, nah, I prefer to work on a commission base. You pay me an hourly rate. I come in, like with the nights the other day. Now, I got there an hour early and I thought, oh, bugger it, I'll just do it for nothing for an hour. Well, it didn't worry me at all. So I ended up doing 2.5 hours instead of 1.5 hours.
Yeah.
But anyway, they were really good about it. And they came over and said, oh, look, no, you can't do this for nothing. We'll pay you the extra hour. So I thought it was really nice, but I didn't do it for the money. I just did it.
Yeah.
I've actually been thinking about just doing it for nothing, just to get my hand in, because it's, like I said, I'm not very good at marketing myself. And so, and Facebook's such a pain. It really is the most ineffective marketing thing I've ever come across. It is rubbish, even though it makes all these claims. It costs a lot of money too. So, but I need to keep my hand in between all the occasional gig. So I'm thinking I might just go to a shopping centre somewhere and just do it for nothing every now and then. But I've been so busy with the fish tank.
Yes. Well, you were, you have been busy on Facebook in regards to some stuff you've been doing since you left the Herald, which has been really interesting stuff. What do we got here? How about the Rolf Harris? Here we go.
Yeah, good old Rolf. It used to be a good thing to be similar to Rolf. I years ago when I first started doing public things, like review clubs, Probus, Rotary, I even got my board once and with the board.
You don't want to be doing that now.
I don't do it now. No.
But he nearly got away with it though, didn't he?
Everybody had a story. That's why I referred to the avalanche earlier. Unlike Geoffrey Rush, there was like the girl didn't even want to actually complain about him. She told a friend who then told the Telegraph. Boom.
Yep.
He actually hadn't had he'd annoyed people. He was annoying. But he didn't he'd actually been getting away with murder for years, even in the bloody paint shop down there in Hamilton.
Yes. Yes.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Everywhere
I've heard
he
some
went.
stories.
He was an awful, awful person.
Yeah.
And when you look back and you start thinking, do a mental postmortem of experience and think, yeah, I remember some jokes he made years ago about, I thought, okay, right.
Yeah.
Okay. And then it all sorts to come out. He was a really nasty piece of work.
Yeah.
But you can mask that. I know another person who I won't name and this is a local person, this is somebody like way off there, who's not as good as they seem, and you can mask it.
Yeah.
And media can do that. You can, like, what's his name, Burke's Backyard. He was a really nasty piece of work.
I've got some stories.
We won't even say that story.
Yeah,
I mean,
I've got some stories I'd love to say.
Yeah, I know. Holy cow.
Because I end up working with, cameramen that used to work for Channel 9 and worked on the show. And look, he was just a creep. He wasn't, he just...
It didn't come through.
No, in regards, when I say he's a creep, I say he just did creepy things in regards to his humour was totally oddball and on the spectrum humour, where everyone else would go, and he'd go, that's not funny,
So you think that was more like that rather than just outright nastiness?
Well,
the Madam Butterfly, like when he was doing that thing of the swimmer, and I thought that story, which I won't mention, that just sounds like malevolence.
Yeah. Well, look, the thing is, too, similar to sort of the Rolf Harris thing, Channel 9, he's winning Logies, and I'm pretty sure the people at Channel 9 knew exactly what was going on. Not that he did anything, that would land him in jail or anything like that. But it's same with Rolf Harris, it's the same as this guy's making the BBC a lot of money. We're just going to say nothing because...
Oh, absolutely.
You know what I mean? So it's the same sort of thing, but totally different. The people sort of knew, but it's almost like, well, as long as he's winning gold Logies or whatever and making, this just turn a blind eye.
Well, I think those days are sort of getting pretty much
it cannot
over.
happen these days.
I mean, we had our one experience, and I won't mention it at all in any sort of context, whatever, but we had one of them, but that person got the sack. Outright. Boom.
Yeah.
End of story, but went on to get a better job somewhere else. So this is like years ago.
Absolutely.
Years ago.
Another
Wouldn't happen
person
now.
Another person who got away with a lot of stuff, George Pell. There we go.
Yeah. Yeah, he One of my hardest audiences was the Catholic Business Association. And I didn't include that in the PowerPoint. But they must have seen my other cartoons on this particular topic.
I think they've just unsubscribed to our podcast just quietly.
But the interesting thing about Pell, and I really struggled to believe that he was one of those guys, but even though he's accused and we found guilty, blah, 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 and he got off. But I remember thinking it doesn't matter whether this may sound ridiculous, but it doesn't matter whether he's guilty or innocent, because his treatment of the families and the people who were abused was so atrocious, so unjust, to actually be treated unjustly. How ironic.
Totally.
You might say karma rode over his dogma.
Yeah.
I mean, this is, and I just thought, how about that? So, and you've got the little dog there as well.
I was going to say that too, that dog appears in a lot of your...
All of them, since 1998.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
Bill Clinton cartoon, he first appeared as a Secret Service agent. But he was my original dog, Romeo. We got Romeo in 95, and I'd always draw him in puppy form because he was a big, fat golden retriever later on. He's a lovely dog, and so I just drew him for fun in one of my cartoons, and he sort of stuck. I did him for a couple of weeks, and nobody said anything. I mean, Lumsden had his cat, Casper. I was just doing the dog for fun. And I even had one journo come up to me and say, "Oh, did you really do that yourself? Was that your idea?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Oh, it's so twee." I thought, okay, bad idea. Anyway, so I'm sitting there in the conference.
That's like a trademark.
Well, that's right. But that afternoon, I went into the conference with all the editors and our senior staff, and I said, "Has anybody noticed anything different about my cartoons? I've been doing the dog for 2 weeks," and they all sort of looked at each other like, "I don't know." Mm-hmm. But then the deputy editor said, "Oh, they're funny now, are they?" Yeah, it's sort of everybody. Yeah,
you know, it reminds me. There used to be a cameraman at NBN called Michael Rourke, and he was a long-time camo. I think he was there from the 80s.
The bloke with a finger missing or something.
No. Sadly, he passed away a few years ago, but he was there from the 80s through to the late 2000s. But he always he had pug dogs. He always used to be, him and his wife used to be walking pug dogs, all the time. But whenever we did a story, wherever he went, it could have been in Scone, if there was a pug dog, he was filming it. And he would shoehorn that into the scene. It didn't matter if it was a dark story.
That was his signature.
Somehow we would sign off with a pug dog. Michael Caine, NBN News, a pug dog, every time, because he just loved that's going in. I say, we can't put it in. It's like it's a sinister story, this one. No, we'll make it work. We're lightening it up a bit.
I've got a pug dog lover in my family, yeah. I've even done birthday cards with pug dogs in it. Yeah.
Peter Garrett. Yeah, I love it.
That was when he was Environment Minister, and the whole nuclear argument.
Really, I didn't remember seeing him
I didn't do that for the newspaper. That one went. I entered that in a competition.
Yeah,
but I had other ones with him. It was, I met him personally years ago. He really is a very tall man.
But I suppose he's about face in regards to everything he stood for.
Well, that's the problem, and it really damaged his reputation because, when you join a party, especially the Labor Party, well, not especially, any party, and so to me it struck him a bit of opportunism. He could have been Lord High, Volgarar in the Greens forever. And then to move to the ALP, which was sort of like, they must have made him a lot of promises. They tended to do that. Oh, you join us, mate, we'll give you a seat, blah, 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 and we'll do things really well. And, but once you join a party like that, you can't speak as an individual. You can speak as an individual in the cabinet and with others and with consensus and the caucus. But once the caucus has come to an agreement, you all have to obey that agreement. And that's a tough gig when you're someone like Peter Garrett. Yeah. Who's a rugged, independent individual. Suddenly it's like that scene in Life of Brian, we're all individuals. They're like, I'm not an individual, shut up. So it's like that. Yeah. And your credibility just goes out the window. Yeah. I've seen lots of really good politicians pilloried for playing the party line, but they have to. And it's like, I know what they really thought. I mean, especially local politicians, you know what they really thought about quite a few issues, but they've got to toe the line. Probably the exception to be Sonia Hornery, who I have great respect for, because her community first, everything else is second. Absolutely. And she's got in so much trouble over the years. But I respect that,
Yeah.
and it takes a tough hide to do that.
Another person we've already spoken about, another few that we'll bring up, Elon Musk. You really hate him, don't you?
I was a fanboy. It's all over between me and Elon now. I thought he was a weirdo, but I thought he's a futurist, and
It doesn't get any worse than this.
Well, I had another one, but you wouldn't be able to see it on the screen. I entered in a competition last year, didn't get anywhere, probably because I didn't look closely. I actually used digital technology. I mean, and I had the entire portrait was made of all lies, right? I actually crafted it in digitally so that the lies were bigger and stronger. So I actually did it by hands, but with a digital thing. So if you look closely, the entire portrait was made of lies. But if you stood back, it just looked like a portrait.
Yeah.
That's up you, Elon. Because basically, when I realised he didn't care about human beings, which sort of started to happen a couple of years back, and I thought, you've lost me, mate. It's all about people. It's not about you being Mr. Wonderful. It's about, yes, it is about the future and thinking ahead and anticipating climate, blah, blah, blah. And I'm always liked the space program, and I thought he's a space program and everything. And I thought, once you stop caring about people, mate, you've just completely lost me. It's all about people.
So I take it you're not getting your Tesla next week?
I feel sorry for people who bought them. Because, I mean, he actually devalued his own brand. I mean, you behave like a complete twat. I mean, what do you think is going to happen? It was all these wealthy left-wingers with a meat and drink of Tesla, and suddenly they're all like, oh, I feel so awkward. I can't drive my car and feel smug anymore.
Rupert Murdoch.
Oh, me old mate Rupert.
Yeah.
I can't even mention. As soon as anybody in my family hears me start talking about Rupert, they all go.
We could have made this whole.
And, I've
got a feeling we could have made this whole podcast about Rupert if you had the chance.
Well, I mean, he'd probably sue. No, he's never actually sued anybody. Unlike Jeff, he's just too big and scary, and he doesn't care. You'd have to be enormously influential. But he never had. He even rejoiced in The Simpsons taking the mickey out of him as like a big, high, powerful dictator.
Yeah.
It amuses him.
Yeah,
That's real power. And so I've been doing Rupert cartoons now. I think my first editor actually came up with the idea for my first Rupert tune. I don't think I included it. Sorry, he's holding all the strings. But each year on his birthday, except this year I forgot. Too busy doing Fish Tank. I do Rupert with his latest birthday cake. One last year I had him with his cakes on fire with so many candles, and underneath I wrote, "Some people just want to watch the world burn." Yeah, from that Batman movie. And he's not getting the blame for what's going on in America. That's absolutely amazing. I mean, even that thing on John Eels or whatever, that really good show with Russell Crowe, they made him out as it's just business. Hang on a minute. Yeah, he hired him. Trump is not what he wanted. He hates Trump because Trump hijacked what he was trying to do. He wanted someone more like, I don't know, somebody with a brain and somebody who could be manipulated. Like Vance is sort of like, but he's like, his life is like a box of chocolates. So Vance is a bit too dim.
Let's keep the ball rolling. Yeah. Roll into Trump. Here we go.
Yeah, well, I did that on my own spec. I didn't get any money for that. I just did that for fun on Melbourne Cup Day and stuck it on Facebook. Where else am I going to put? I didn't get a cent for that.
So this is about the race that stops the nation.
Yeah, the race that stops the nation. I think I put that on the punchline on Instagram or whatever. And so I included all the usual suspects. There's Rupert. His son actually will sue people. That's a danger. I mean, if I start criticising the Murdoch Empire once the old boy carks it, then that could be dangerous because he will sue you.
Ku Klux Klan.
Xi Jinping,
the Ku Klux Klan's a good touch.
The guns, the booster up the backside with, and of course, they're all there.
What could you have left out of that?
There's a few mobbed up since then.
Even
Zuckerberg. I mean, when all the billionaires line up behind him at his inauguration, I went, what? So I've been going to Toastmasters for about a year and a half, just as a polish up. Mm-hmm. I used to go public speaking years ago, and Toastmasters is quite formal. So at first I thought, I don't know if I can handle this, but then I thought, I'll make it my own. So I sort of do things. On one occasion I had to do a thing or talking about something that will help you in a speech, and so there is a point to this tangent.
Yeah.
So it's about, there was this word of the day and we did, and so I said, well, people need to, nobody's could remember the word of the day. So I said, I'll show you how to remember it. So I threw a glass of water in my face and then I said the word. I said, now you'll remember it. Shock and awe. I said, that's what Trump uses. Shock and awe. And do something ridiculous, like stick a bit of toilet paper to your shoe when you're going up the ramp at Air Force One. They're all strategic manoeuvres. These are sound bites and baits and things, and bait and switch. Mm-hmm. And so this is where it's all headed. And Rupert wanted he's master of all that stuff, but Trump took it all off him and made it his own. Ultimate opportunist. Took it all away and made it his own and made himself king. And not only that, but did it twice. That's a pretty good effort.
Double bunger. Finally, I love this one, King Charles.
Oh, yeah, right.
And this one's got a story.
Yeah, it has a bit of a story.
In regards to...
Yeah. My wife is in the Newcastle Croquet Club, and Julie said to me, that once Charles became king, and she said, "Well, we're going to take the Queen down from the wall because it's a bit old fashioned, the old portrait Queen, probably 20 or 30 years ago photograph." And she said, "We've put a thing into council to have a new, or the powers that be, for a new portrait of the king."
Yep.
And she said, my wife's got a lovely sense of mischief. She said, "Could you do one of your own? Could you have one? And we'll get it framed and see if." So I did. So this is my answer to that. It's done digitally, but I use like the sort of techniques you use for.
You could sell that to all the RSL clubs.
It's gone away to a few of them. But a couple of people asked me. Nobody's actually offered me any money, but anyway, they all love it. There's a couple of croquet clubs have got it now, but anyway, a couple of people weren't happy about it. The croquet club, but
really?
No, it's only one or two. But then they thought, we love it. And they stuck it up on the wall. I think that
I'd say
the official portrait's next to it now.
Have you ever played croquet? Have you gone with your wife?
Yeah, I'm rubbish. I'm rubbish at all sport. Haven't you figured that out yet? Well, what do you think I became a cartoonist? I can't throw a ball for love or money. I had to put my waste bin at the other end of my office, which is only like from here to that wall, because when I had the rubbish bin next to me where I could throw all the throwaway cartoons and bits, because cartoonists are the biggest rubbish makers in the universe.
Yeah.
So I had to throw the rubbish to the bin, because I had to put the bin near the doorway so that the cleaners would remember to pick it up. Otherwise, it went in this bin full of trash and they never remember to pick it up. So I put it down the other end of the office. So I'm throwing, do you think I ever get a bit of paper in that bin? Not a chance. So that's my sporting career wrapped up in one.
You know Michael Jordan there.
Nah.
How's the portrait coming along?
Well, like I said, I'll make excuses, but I'm trying to think what I can do. I'll put the microphone in. But you've got a particular profession or hobby or interest beyond this that you'd like included? See, normally I'd have you sitting there, but I'm sort of catching in bits and pieces here. Got any particular passion?
Probably soccer.
Soccer. Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
That's
easy. Just run a circle.
I'm going to have to give you very tiny little legs now. You're going to start looking like cartoons of Vance. Yeah, so all right.
While you're doing that, so
yeah, sure.
Has anyone not liked a portrait in regards to you've done it and you thought you've done a pretty good job here?
Yeah, I get that.
And then you go, what do? Do you just go, I'll do it again, or you just, here you go, suck it?
Well, what happened was, years ago, I used to help promote the Herald by going out to the Newcastle show and spending I was actually asked to just go out there and talk to people. I figured that was a dud idea. So I started sketching them. Instantly, 30 people in a row, waiting to have their portraits done. It's free. Hey, free is a magic word. I reckon I could have sold my dog's poop, if I just put a sign out the front, or not sold it, but given it away. Free dog poop, and people would take it. Same sort of thing. Anyway, so I remember on one occasion, I drew this woman, and it was during the Bronwyn Bishop period, but like back in the early in her career when Hewson was the opposition leader. And I remember this woman sat down in front of me, and she looked like Bronwyn Bishop with the big hair, looked like Frankenstein's hair, right? Like a beehive stuck on her head. So I drew her, but I just drew her like she was.
Yep.
And then she was horrified, middle-aged lady. She looked at her and said, "You've made me look like Bronwyn Bishop." And then she turned around to all the people in the row behind and said, "That doesn't look like me, does it?" Then, "Oh, yeah, mate, that looks just like you." So anyway, it gets worse. So here I am, a few years later, going under for a surgical operation. Next thing you know, her face fills the field of view. She's the charge nurse. She said, "You did my portrait years ago and I didn't like it." I thought, I'm screwed. No, but I did wake up again. So
Just then with Bronwyn Bishop, I actually worked with her daughter Angela at Channel 10. The entertainment reporter, and we got on great. But if you mentioned anything about the fact that you've got a resemblance to your mum, she was off you. Oh. And I really pissed her off too, because what happened was that Max Markson, who we had on the pod a few weeks ago, he was representing Jean-Claude Van Damme, came out to Australia, and I said, wow, I'd really love to do an interview with this guy, just away from Channel 10, get it done, bring it back, and maybe the morning show will take this interview, this exclusive interview. And Max went, yeah, sure. Everything was going to go great until Angela Bishop found out about it. I was cutting her grass. I'm the entertainment reporter around here. And
I don't think that apple fell far from the tree somehow. She had, it was a bit like Cartman, respect my authority. So I actually made a mistake here. Which football were you talking about?
Soccer.
Good. Soccer.
Oh.
The
real football.
I had a very unorthodox move. It was league.
So NRL, rugby league, that's a different sport. Rugby union, AFL, Aussie rules. Football is soccer.
Yes, I know. This is sacred. I mean, don't criticise Islam and don't call, when you say football, you mean soccer, right? Yeah.
I feel like I'm on, what was the Rocket? What was the Mr. Squiggle?
Mr. Squiggle.
Yeah.
I met Bill Hetherington?
Yeah.
At Stanley Awards on one occasion. And he looks just like him. I mean, seriously. I suppose every time I draw somebody short and fat, do I? I mean, I don't know. But Mr. Squiggle, he had a long, skinny neck, bulging eyes, and a big, long nose like that. Seriously, he looked just like his character.
Well, I don't want your sketchboard to start doing like Blackboard going, hurry up.
Yeah, hurry up. Yeah, I don't remember Blackboard. I love Mr. Squiggle, even into my adulthood.
Well, I suppose, that would have been inspiring.
And it was inspiring because I taught kids cartoon classes for years.
Yeah.
You got to earn a few little bucks on the side, and that was one of the exercises. I get them to do I get them to say, okay, I want every kid to draw just a couple of random lines on a sheet of paper.
Yeah.
And then they had to swap with the kid next to them.
But how
and then you got to make it into a face from the squiggle.
But how bloody hard is it? It's hard enough to do a sketch as it is. He's got like a puppet doing it.
No, it's a broom handle.
Oh, it's a broom handle, right?
The broom handle runs down from his hat, and then so the nose up, so you're going sort of like that. And the reason why they're all upside down is he's leaning over the thing like that.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, so
I had no idea because I'm thinking, how the hell did that happen?
I used to wonder that myself as a kid.
Exploded that myth for me. Thank you.
Yeah. I've ruined it. No, he was his stuff is now in the Australian Museum. Yeah. He did a great job, and I thought it was terrific. Even I remember there was one girl named Pat or something I knew, and everybody used to like his offsider was so famous. Everybody used to, when they talked, they'd say, "Oh, Miss Pat. How are you, Miss Pat? Miss Pat," because of the character on Mr. Squiggle. Yeah, the woman. Yeah.
Just finally, what's next for you?
A lot of medication, probably.
I thought you took it before you came.
Yeah, every day. Lots of it. Anyway, not for psychological stuff. No. Look, there are a lot more ideas. I mean, I'd like to keep doing this sort of stuff. Yeah. I'm always open for this.
Yeah.
I've got so many more ideas beyond the fish tank, but they've all been blocked by the fish tank. It's sort of like a car that broke down on the M1. Sort of all these other cars are stacked up behind it. I've got heaps of other ideas and pseudo-mechanical stuff again.
Yeah.
My weakness has always been lack of budget, in not having the money to turn around my chair and say to an electrician, "Can you solve this problem for me?" Like before I came in this morning, I got up at 6 o'clock and I'm solving an electrical problem, which defied me as usual, even though it's only 12-volt electrical. So yeah, that'd be right. I'll figure you out later, whatever. Later. So if you have a budget, if you have money, you can do all these things. But I can honestly say, when I look at the thing, this is, all my own work. With a bit of help from my friends, but all my own work. It's a DIY from hell. But as the good friends from the museum said, well, if you're doing it, if you had money, look at what you wouldn't have done and look at what you wouldn't have felt an achievement for. And I've learned all these trades. I like to taught myself 3D design.
Yeah.
for an engineering program. I had to do it, so I did it.
Yeah.
When you're up against the wall and you've got an objective and you want that objective. I mean, a couple of years ago, I did some filming for 100 Writers, and I built my own green screen, which I stuck in the living room, much to my wife's horror. Anyway, so we did all this filming, not with beautiful gear like this, but you're asked to do something and you do it, and then you learn all these skills. And it would be a tragedy if I wasn't able to take those skills on. I just hope it wouldn't be quite so stressful.
Yeah. Just staying with that in regards to backs to the wall, you got a deadline. Did you find that you did your best work sometimes when you're under pressure, when you didn't have time to think too much about it?
My wife reckons I work better under pressure. I think probably because, I'm not very self-disciplined. Again, probably because I'm down on the 2 in the autism scale. I have no self-discipline, like no focus. Mm-hmm. So when somebody pulls a gun against your head, you start to think pretty quickly. Sometimes not so well, but like I said, I have a sprinter's temperament, I think. Mm. So the closer you get to the destination, the more the heat's on, the more you got to do it, and you stop waffling around. One of the problems with the job is a dead ending. So you'll be it's like hunting a prey. You're hunting a story there. You know there's a story there. You got all the pieces there, but you can't quite put them together, and you're hunting for it. You're following this mental trail in your head, but then you realise you've dead-ended, and there's nothing there. There's no wordplay. There's no populist thing you can use. There's no spin, and then you got to beep, 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 and pull the reverse your truck all the way back up, and then start again. And so, in a way, all creative trades, including yours and yours, is you are when you create something. And it's not pure engineering. Like engineers work in the objective world. We work in the subjective world. Mm. And so you're like a train going into a tunnel. It's black. And to use the old metaphor, and there's a bitty little light way down at the other end of the tunnel. And you've got to find your way down there. It might seem like a straight line, but usually it's not. Usually you've got to go all the way around. Oh, my God, and you're running into the walls to follow that metaphor. And how did I end up here? And then eventually you might get to the other end. I do a bit of writing as well. I've had a couple of things at minor publishing level. I like science fiction writing and reading. And so it's even worse with writing. I think of all the creative trades, writing would be the absolute hardest and worst. You feel like you really want to put a gun in your mouth after you've been writing for a couple of hours. But you've got to get the other end. And some people are so creatively powerful, it's like having a really powerful light on the front of your train, right, to follow that metaphor again. And sometimes you might have a powerful light, and then all of a sudden the light goes, and it's out, and you're like, creative block time, ice cream right in the middle of your forehead, and you're stuck, and that happens at the Herald too. But that's when the sheer pressure of the moment drives you to find every ounce of those neurons that are refusing to synapse. You make them synapse, and you call them, you summon up every ounce of brain cell you've got to try and get over that line. And sometimes too, like dieting, like trying to get the weight off, right? That can have a negative thing sometimes. Now they say, eating less food is good for you. I don't know if I agree about that. I remember one night I was completely stuck on this idea, and the deadlines were rearing up. I didn't have a lot of time to go, and I was really hungry because I was on a diet again. And I thought, stuff it. And I went down to Jerry's chip shop. I came back with the chips, and I eating the chips, and boom, boom, boom. I had 3 ideas in about 5 minutes. So that's my secret to cartooning. Eat more. Eat fatty food, mate. Gets those neurons going, and my brain was satisfied. All right, I can think up an idea now. Thanks, mate. And I'm fat again.
Peter Lewis, has been an absolute pleasure. You've got an extraordinary story and an incredible life. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you to David for managing everything and listening to my manic episodes.
I can't wait to see what I look like.
There you go. Could have.
Wow.
Anyway, so it's a bit sort of pseudo-real sort of. Well,
I love it.
Anyway, I got you to smile for a while. I think you're actually grimacing, but it'll do.
Thank you, Peter. I love it.
It's been a pleasure, and thank you very much.
Pride and place.
That's right, behind the toilet door.
I knew you were the person that bought that portrait of me.
It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Peter.
Yeah, cheers.